Good afternoon. It is Thursday. It's a four-game NBA slate, and producer Jordan Klein is wide awake for today's deeper dive. Alongside with me is Adam Ship My Money. Adam, how are you doing on this Thursday?
Doing pretty well. Just, mostly really glad that Jordan's alive and with us for this show. It was very concerning this morning. I thought that, he might have been dead and I would have to take a vacation to LA to pay my respects, but he's here, so we're good.
Yeah, and luckily we all dodged that LA flight, and here we are to talk about a four-game slate, little NBA Finals rematch between the Warriors and Celtics tonight. A little interesting rotation situation happening in Phoenix. The Saban Lee 10-day contract coming to an end on Friday. Why Dwayne Washington Jr. was he out the rotation? We'll touch on all of that, but also shout out our presenting sponsor, Prize Picks, as well. Go to the link in the description. Take advantage of our deposit bonus if you deposit up to $100. And you'll get rewarded with a free month of Stokastic Plus. And producer Jordan Klein will be dropping that link in the chat. Click that like button for us. And the first game we go to, we'll go back to Boston. Watch the Golden State Warriors are taking on the Celtics tonight. Golden State's going to be fully healthy. They're going to have kind of their full roster ready to go. Curry, Poole, Clay, all expected to play. And it's going to be a tough spot to get to some of these Warriors guys in significant fashion. It's a four-game slate. We're going to get to some of these guys, but Curry comes in at 10-1, 9-5 on FanDuel, $40 on Yahoo. The 9-5 price tag on FanDuel looks outstanding to me. He's probably my favorite Warrior to get to. I see Andrew Wiggins is getting a lot of ownership, sub 6K over there on DraftKings, rightfully so. How do you feel about this Warrior spot in Boston?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much six guys here that I'm interested in total. They are getting healthy, like you said, so it's basically the starters plus Dante DiVincenzo as far as guys that you really expect to get minutes here. Lamb would be the seventh. Well, Poole would be the seventh guy, but he's priced up. And then Lamb would be the eighth guy. But Wiggins pulling the most ownership, I think, just because of the positional eligibility. He's likely to give you 33 or 34 minutes tonight. It's just a good price tag for him. You're never going to be too excited about getting Andrew Wiggins into your lineups when Curry and Clay are both active, especially in a matchup with Boston. But the small forward eligibility is nice. The price tag's nice. So I understand why he's the most popular guy. I'm with you on Curry, though. I think right now only getting 8% ownership on DraftKings makes him really appealing in tournaments because if this game's competitive, you can expect 35, 36 minutes from him. He's, rebounded at a higher rate this year overall. He's been extremely efficient, which isn't surprising, but even by his standards, he's been efficient this year. So he kind of just seems like he's going a little bit overlooked when you have a very, very good guard range around 10K. You have James Harden, you have Kyrie without Durant, you have Damian Lillard, you have Curry, and then not a guard, but you also have Pascal Siakam in that price range. So I get why Curry's going a little bit overlooked, but since he is, I like getting there and just, hoping you get that big Steph Curry game. Kevon Looney's cheap at 4,500, should give you 25 or 26 minutes. And then Thompson and Draymond, I think, are sort of the two least appealing of the starters. They're still pulling some ownership since it is a four-game slate, but I have a more difficult time making a case for either of them than I do for Wiggins, Curry, or Looney.
Yeah, and just to circle back on Thompson and Draymond, certainly have tournament winning upside on this four-game slate, limited teams on this. So you'll kind of fall on these guys organically, potentially. If I wanted to play Clay, I'll do so on DraftKings where you get the 3-point bonus at 7,200. He certainly has a ceiling, but in my opinion, he's priced towards kind of the upper threshold with this whole team healthy. Jordan Poole certainly can find a way to get his. I know he's priced up at 7,600. Don't prefer the rest of these Warriors guys. I think by the time the lineup start, I'll be coming in under the field, but they certainly all individually have that upside. I know it's a tough Boston spot, but the size of this slate, you can certainly make an argument to get to some of these guys. Any interest in going to the bench guys? I know DiVincenzo is getting around 5% right now over there on DraftKings. I think the minutes are going to be near 20, less than it'll be a little bit. I think around 20 seems appropriate. Do you have a DiVincenzo ballpark of minutes with all these players healthy tonight?
I'm expecting around 26. There's still a decent chance that he finds his way into the closing lineup rather. But also I just expect it to be a pretty condensed rotation. I think you're going to see the five starters, Poole, DiVincenzo, Lamb, and then maybe a handful of minutes from Moses Moody. But I expect it to be a pretty condensed rotation here, which does make me think DiVincenzo is going to play mid-20s in minutes at 4,800 with guard and forward eligibility on DraftKings. That is somewhat appealing. Still not a very good point per minute guy though, especially when you're expecting Curry and Thompson to play so many minutes.
You got a 199 super chat from Bobby B specifically for you, Adam. He says, "Love you, Adam. Got third in the 5K zone because of you goats."
Nice.
First of all, congratulations and thank you for that 199 super chat. Appreciate you giving back to the Stokastic family. But more importantly, congratulations and hope you have continued success. Any final thoughts on this Warriors team before we move on to Boston?
No.
All right, onto the Boston side we go, and the Boston side is going to get Jaylen Brown back. And with Jaylen Brown back, he's certainly going to find a way to eat into the usage of guys like Tatum, going to be taking away from those surplus minutes we saw Derek White and Malcolm Brogdon getting. Marcus Smart's still in the range there, comes in at 6,500 and 6,300 over there on FanDuel. But Robert Williams comes in 5,500 and 5,900 on FanDuel. And what those minutes look like for Rob Williams in this Golden State matchup can kind of dictate the slate. He has an awesome upside. He can find a way to get high 20s minutes. We saw that happen when he's been starting of late. I want to start with Rob Williams first, and then we'll break down the Jaylen Brown situation. How intrigued are you by Robert Williams tonight at that price tag?
Very. I think that, we've seen him playing 27, 28 minutes recently in his starts. Assuming that he remains in the starting lineup with Brown back and that it's Derek White that goes to the bench, I don't really see any reason that you're not expecting another 27 minutes or so from Williams here. Only 5,500, short slate, also only pulling 9% ownership while we have him projected for about a 17% chance of being optimal. That does make me think that ownership number probably comes up between now and lock. Maybe it's just a function of, we don't know the starting lineup yet, why the ownership isn't projected to be higher. But assuming he starts, I do think it comes up a bit. But either way, he's going to look pretty good at 5,500 as somebody that we know has a lot of upside. He has plenty of volatility in his game, which is nice from a ceiling standpoint because of the block upside that he gives you as well. So as long as he's starting, I like getting him.
Yeah, I know there is Embiid later on the slate, but if you don't want to spend up for Embiid, and I know Naz Reid is also going to potentially get a lot of ownership if he does start for Gobert there. Rob Williams makes for an exciting high upside tournament play on tonight's slate. To go back to the Jaylen Brown situation, he's 9K and 8-3. I'm not sure what the minutes look like. It's an adductor injury. He did practice. I do think low 30s seems like the optimistic approach, similar to what our data and tools team have. I'm not too sure if there's going to be a minutes limit by any means, but he'll certainly get his usage when he's on the court, and he could harm the guys like who were getting additional minutes when in his absence. How do you feel about the Jaylen Brown situation and the rest of the Celtics team? There's certainly tournament upside, obviously, for Jason Tatum at 10-8 and 11K. But the rest of the team, it kind of hurts everyone pretty significantly, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's plenty of upside. I mean, this is expected to be a high-scoring game. It's got about a 240 total. Good matchup against Golden State. But I think Brown coming back does cut into everyone else's production. Jason Tatum is still going to look good. He's still an extremely high upside guy. But the problem that I'm having with Tatum right now is that we have him projected for 17% ownership. So basically double the ownership of Steph Curry on the other side of this game. And similar to a lot of the other pay up options, I think Tatum is projects similarly to those guys, probably a little bit higher, but he's also more expensive. So if the ownership's going to hold there, I don't expect to get to a lot of Tatum. If that burns me, then so be it. But I'll just get to most of the guys priced around him. Where I think it really becomes interesting, though, is if that ownership does come down a bit, then I'd certainly be happy to get there because he's just as good as all of those guys that are a little bit less expensive. He's still a very, very good option. But right now with the ownership where it is, I'm not getting to much Tatum. I'm getting around the field. We have Jaylen Brown projected for about 10% ownership. I'm around the field on him. Certainly want to keep an eye out for any news that we get regarding, is he actually going to be limited? Are they going to monitor his minutes? We know that those two things typically are very, very different. But assuming he's starting and not on any specific limit, I think expecting, 34 minutes or so is reasonable. Like, I don't think they would bring him back unless he's good to go. If they say that they're limiting him, then they're probably limiting him. But if we don't hear anything, I'm not expecting a major minutes limit for him. As far as the rest of the team goes, it's a team that I think on larger slates you wouldn't have much interest in, but because it is a 4-game slate, you're getting 18% ownership coming into Marcus Smart. I think that's fine, but I do think Brown's return is a negative for him. You have 10% coming into Horford, which seems fine as well. He should give you around 30 minutes. I'm getting around the field on him. One spot that I do think is interesting though on DraftKings is Malcolm Brogdon at 5,900, only pulling 5% ownership. I don't like getting to him at this price tag in the sense that like I'm not very confident in him. But if you project him for say 23 minutes, he projects for like 26, around 26 DraftKings points. But we know that there is volatility in his playing time. Like you could get a closing lineup where he's in it in place of Al Horford or he's in it in place of Robert Williams. So I think that's kind of interesting just because he's so low owned and such a like still a good point per minute guy that if you happen to just get a few extra minutes from him, it can put you in a pretty good spot.
Name that we haven't mentioned on the Celtics team is Al Horford. He's getting a lot of ownership over there in FanDuel. By a lot, he's coming in around 25%. Power forward center. It's a number I don't think I'll be willing to get up to. Specifically on FanDuel, do you want to share your quick thoughts on Al Horford?
So on DraftKings, I'm right around the field. I haven't made FanDuel lineups. I'm not playing FanDuel, but he is 5,200 there, so a little bit better price tag than on DraftKings. He's pulling 25% ownership there. That's a lot. Yeah, I mean it's a lot, but also probably just a function of like needing two power forwards there. We have him with a 14% chance of being optimal, so probably a little bit overowned.
Yeah, so keep an eye on the Jaylen Brown. If there's any like pregame notes that comes out about what his minutes look like. Part of me is kind of concerned that they might be rushing him back just for this matchup because I don't know. I don't want to take my personal bias into it too much, but part of me thinks like they might be rushing him back just a tad bit just for this matchup. Hopefully he's good to go because the Celtics will need him to stay healthy throughout the season and postseason as well. Any final thoughts on this game before we move on?
No.
All right. Click that like button for us. And also, if you guys don't know by now, we do have all our DFS offering has those 5-day free trials. So you can check that out in the link in the description below. Get access to these extensive, vast range of tools that we have for especially NBA. NBA Boom Bust is available. NBA ownership, just a lot of tools out there for you to take your game to the next level. So if you haven't checked out Stokastic yet, I highly recommend to do so. It will definitely help you out in your process going forward. We have a lot of exciting new tools being revealed behind the scenes. So looking forward to those launching and for you guys to take advantage of them as this NBA season chugs along. On to the next game we go. Toronto takes on Minnesota, and Nick Nurse is back to fucking his players, I guess. He's only playing these guys 8-man rotation the last couple of games. Siakam, Van Vliet, Scotty Barnes, OG Anunoby, Gary Trent getting the chunk of those minutes. And then we've seen a healthy Precious Achiuwa, who's been soaking up a lot of the backup big minutes. And the other two guys who've been getting minutes in moderation have been Boucher and Juancho Hernan-Gomez, and everyone else has kind of gotten the middle finger. The Toronto team looks outstanding to me from top to bottom. Even Boucher, not Boucher, even Achiuwa looks kind of appealing coming off the bench. He's getting a lot of ownership for that price tag. We haven't touched on anyone sub 4K value right now, and he might be one of the better sub 4K value options on the slate. When I look to Toronto, I always look to Siakam for the highest upside, 9.7 and 9.3. In the Minnesota spot, he looks outstanding even at $41. But as is the rest of the team, it's a spot where I think I'll be getting above the field on Toronto guys. I don't know how much above the field I can get with Achiuwa, just because we've touched on Robert Williams. There's Embiid on the slate. But we got to spend down somewhere to get in those studs. How do you feel about this Raptors team tonight against Minnesota?
Yeah, it's a really appealing spot, both because of the matchup and because we've seen Nick Nurse go back to playing his guys a ton of minutes. And so I think this is a pretty easy team to get to. The Achiuwa ownership, you mentioned it, that's a tricky spot to me because on the one hand, he shows up. Like if you just start crunching top projected lineups, Precious Achiuwa is going to show up in a lot of them, especially even more so if Rudy Gobert is in, because then, Naz Reid isn't taking up a value spot. You need to find, it's even more important to find value if Gobert is in, you're losing Naz Reid. So we have him projected for 31% ownership, and I get it, but also it's not like he's a lock to play 26 minutes just because he did last game. The game before that, he played about 20, but 2 of it was in overtime. So you're talking about like an 18-minute rotation for Achiuwa. And then looking back any further than that, you're getting into when Toronto was running actual bench rotations. So I don't want to read too much into his playing time then. I think projecting him around 22 minutes here makes sense. And it does make him project as a good point per dollar play with around 22 DraftKings points. I just think the ownership may be a little bit higher than it should be. And one spot that seems interesting to me, and really, if the slate started right now, I would basically just be flipping it, is that Chris Boucher is pulling 8% ownership to Achua's 31. I think Achua is the better play. I think he's the safer play, better play in terms of projection, if you're playing cash or small field or anything like that. But I think on average, you're getting like 17, 18 minutes from Boucher and probably around 22 from Achua. But there are going to be times where Boucher plays well and he gets more minutes. Achua plays poorly, he gets less, whatever it may be. I'm not confident at all in Boucher, but I still think that there's a lot of volatility in the rotation, particularly between Achua and Boucher. And on a 4-game slate where the ways that I can be contrarian without being just completely stupid are pretty limited, I do think this is a spot that, even though it's risky, I kind of like trying to take advantage of.
Yeah, and it's a small slate where I think those type of decision points kind of flip the field and jump the field in your lineups, and I'm all for taking those chances. The rest of the team, yeah, Siakam, VanVleet. Do you have a preference in one of the studs? Would you rather, like, if you were building one lineup, would you have VanVleet or Siakam in it?
Siakam. So I like VanVleet. His rebounding numbers recently are up as well, which we'll see if that holds. But it is worth noting the usage rate still hasn't really come up from where it was earlier in the year. But Siakam, has had a couple of disappointing games in a row, but he's the guy that I project to play the most minutes on the slate. His salary has come down to $9,700. He's only pulling 15% ownership on DraftKings. So I do like getting there. And you don't have as much opportunity cost at center tonight as you normally do. Clearly, you still have good centers. You have Embiid, you have Nurkic, you have Ayton in a very good spot. You have Looney as value. You have Robert Williams. Like, there's still plenty of centers to get to, but not quite as much as on bigger slates. So I do like getting to Siakam. The wings look pretty good as well. Gary Trent's played huge minutes outside of that game where he played 20. Anunoby playing big minutes and pretty cheap. Scotty Barnes is playing at a high level right now and getting more minutes. So I like getting to all of those guys, but Siakam's the one I'm getting to the most.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think the trade deadline is February 9th, I believe, 20 days away or so from now. And this team is like in the front facing of all the NBA rumors is that Masai Ujiri is going to blow this team up. As that'll be really interesting to see who they try to trade and keep and go from there, and what Nick Nurse is going to do with this rotation to close out the season. We'll see, though. They're just rumors. But any other thoughts on the rest of the starters? That being Barnes, Anunoby, and Gary Trent Jr. They all look like solid options and great tournament options just because of those minutes can be high 30s, and anyone playing those type of minutes with talent can find a way to an upside. So I'll have interest in all three of those guys in significant fashion in tournaments. How about you?
Yeah, same here. I don't really think that there's anything wrong with where the field's at. The only interesting ownership part was what I was saying about Achua and Boucher. And even that, it's clearly not like if you don't want to do that, like it's risky and that's fine. There's plenty of other spots you can, try and make pivots on the slate, but that's one that is just showing up for me as a spot that I'll probably target and just hope for the best. But other than getting over the field on Siakam, because I think that the field maybe is just a little bit too light on him, VanVleet, Anunoby, Barnes, Trent, all pulling 15 to 20% ownership. And I think all of that looks good.
Yep. Click that like button for us. Shout out to our sponsor, Prize Picks. If the Chua rebound prop is still available for you, our data and tools team suggests to take the over on that over there on Prize Picks. So use that deposit bonus in the description. Take advantage of the Stokastic offering, and hopefully Achua can get over that rebound prop. I believe it was at 5.5 when I last checked. So make sure to take advantage of that. Let's go on to the Minnesota side of things. A lot of questionable parts here for Minnesota, where it makes things awfully difficult to navigate for show purposes. But here we are with Minnesota. We saw Naz Reid be extensive chalk the other night last night. And now Anthony Edwards is questionable. Rudy Gobert is questionable. I think it'd be a huge mistake to play Gobert just having these like back-to-back groin injuries. The Anthony Edwards situation, he's just been dealing with all sorts of soreness over the last couple of weeks. Maybe he's just doing just fine and he'll play. But if Gobert's out, I think all eyes go to Naz Reid, rightfully so. Naz Reid comes in at 4,600. If Gobert is out, he looks like the best point per dollar value play on this slate, and that will definitely shift a lot of ownership once we get that news if Gobert is out. But then if Edwards is out, that just opens up a ton of value across the board for this Minnesota team because we know Anthony Edwards is going to find a way to get a ton of shots up, and they're going to be spread around to guys like D'Angelo Russell. Jalen Noel is going to get a lot of that usage. Even Slow-Mo and McDaniels will get some of that. It's a tough Minnesota situation to break down just because of two significant guys in Gobert and Edwards being questionable. But how do we attack the Minnesota situation tonight?
Yeah, and on top of Gobert and Edwards being questionable, you also have Taurean Prince and Austin Rivers, which can certainly have an impact. With Rivers and Gobert out yesterday, you got like 32 or 33 minutes from Taurean Prince. If they're both out here, that's opening up a lot of minutes for, I guess, Jalen Noel, Forbes, like whoever's at the end of the bench for Minnesota. But that's a piece we'll need to pay attention to as well. But if Gobert is in, I'm not overly interested in him. I gave him 32 minutes, assuming he plays. I have basically no confidence in that, but it would make it so the big piece would be that Naz Reid isn't going to look particularly good at $4,600 if he's just the backup center. But if Gobert is out, you get right back to Naz Reid being, I think, clearly the top play on the slate. We can get into Saban Lee in a bit, but if Reid is starting, I think he's the best play on the slate. He has power forward eligibility on DraftKings too, which is nice. His salary dropped $200 from yesterday. It's just a spot where he just looks too good. Like he dealt with massive foul trouble in the second half yesterday, but he played 19 minutes in the first half. We had seen that earlier in the year too, when he was starting, when he avoided the game that he got hurt, obviously not withstanding. He just played huge minutes. It wasn't like they were throwing him out there for 28 to 30 minutes. He was getting full starter run, and you don't need full starter run from him at this price tag. He can deal with some foul trouble and still get, 26, 28 minutes and be a really, really good play here. So it's just difficult for him to fail at this price if he's starting in place of Gobert, barring basically an ejection or an injury. So I would just play a ton of Reid, but you would also get Luka Garza most likely being the backup center behind them. He's 3K flat. He's a very good point per minute guy. Josh and I had kind of gone back and forth about it this morning, whether we were willing to play him in a lineup with Naz Reid or not. And I'm leaning more now towards actually being willing to do it if Gobert is out, just because of it being a 4-game slate and there not being as many good options you can get to. And also there just not being a lot of cheap value, at least right now. If you were to get a situation where like Anthony Edwards is also out and then I don't know, guys that we're not expecting right now get ruled out as well, and you just get like a bunch of really cheap value, then I'd reconsider. But right now, I think that like if Garza just hits his median projection in say 16 minutes and Reid hits his in 30 to 32, they're both going to be pretty good plays. And there's a decent chance that like even in those 16 to 18 minutes, Garza ends up being the best 3K guy on the slate. So I'd actually right now be willing to play them together if Gobert is out.
Yeah, that's going to be very interesting. And I don't think Garza is going to be that owned. Even if Gobert is out, he'll get some ownership, but nowhere near the likes of Achua. I know you could get some savings, and if you were to play the slate 100 times, how often does Garza outscore Achua in a situation like this? If Gobert is out, it's not that far off, and the ownership, I don't think, will dictate it like that. Taurean Prince right now, you mentioned him. He's already getting a lot of ownership right now. Is he kind of a trappy play?
Who was that?
Taurean Prince.
Oh, I think it depends on Austin Rivers in particular. If and also Anthony Edwards, but if we assume that like the same people play that played yesterday, so no Rivers and no Gobert, I think 20% on Prince is reasonable. He would probably play mid to upper 20s, but certainly has a path to playing more. The thing about yesterday that I think is important to keep in mind is that he doesn't have to play those 32 or 33 minutes because Jalen Noel only played 14. They ran Wendell Moore out there for 9 minutes as well. If Jalen Noel just plays like 20 to 22, then you're getting Prince right back down to his normal, mid 20s playing time. So I think that's important to keep in mind that those minutes don't have to be there, but the chances of them being there increase if Austin Rivers is out. If Rivers is in, though, I'm still expecting around 24 minutes from Prince, which makes him look decent at 3,600. But the ownership is certainly something to pay attention to because it's quite a bit for Taurean Prince.
Yeah, and this is huge questionable tags for this team. It'll pretty much shift like the ownership on the slate if it breaks a certain way. So maybe we'll get that before the slate locks, and live before lock we'll be able to break that down. Greg and Eric will be following us in about 30 minutes. On to the next game we go. Philly taking on Portland. Click that like button for us. And it's another Philly slate, and it sounds like a broken record when we do these. It's yet again Embiid and Harden look like guys who I'll be willing to get to. 11K for Embiid, 9.8 for Harden. But now the likes of Tobias Harris, and Tyrese Maxey are more reasonable. They're now low 6K, 6.1 and 6.2 for Harris and Maxey respectively. A little bit of a different story over there in FanDuel. They're priced up a little bit more compared to the DraftKings price tag. I like getting to Harden and Embiid. And I don't mind sprinkling in some Maxey. I prefer Maxey to Harris if I had to play one of those guys. I think Maxey has a higher upside. I know he's coming off the bench now just because of, I think, fit. Doc Rivers blatantly lied and said Maxey called him and said, I want to come off the bench. And Maxey had a post-game presser saying, I know I can start. I just think I got to come off the bench according to the coaching staff. So interesting situation breaking out there. D'Anthony Melton was hurt. He's now playing around mid to low 20s minutes or so. So he's another tournament upside player at 4,300. A lot of things need to go right for him to pay that off. But this Philly team's taking on Portland. Embiid and Harden lead the way here. How do you feel about the rest of the Sixers team?
Yeah, so Harden and Embiid both look good. This game is likely to be high scoring. You have a 234 total, only a 2-point spread. Not much defense likely to be played here. Embiid pulling 22% ownership on DraftKings. Harden's pulling 17. I'd be quite a bit over both of those if the slate started right now. I'd be getting to around 45% Embiid. I'd be getting to around 28% Harden. I think they're just going a little bit overlooked given the matchup. And if this game's competitive, you're likely getting around 35 minutes from Embiid. You should get 36 or 37 from Harden, most likely. So they both look good. Happy to get there. Tobias Harris at 6,100. Not someone I normally play, but just given the slate, given the fact that wings, small forwards in his price range are actually pretty useful here. And he is just getting less ownership than some of the alternatives. He's pulling 10% on DraftKings, whereas Andrew Wiggins is pulling 21%. So you're getting twice as much for Wiggins, different price point, but you're getting 34% going to Josh Hart. OG Anunoby is pulling 1.5, almost 2 times as much. So it's just a spot where even though I think all of those guys project better, at least relative to salary, than Harris does, I don't think the gap between them is that big. Clearly he's the third or fourth option, depending on how you want to refer to him and Maxey, but it's still an appealing game. It's just Tobias Harris not getting much ownership here. So I like getting over the field there. And I'm with you on Maxey. I think the only real change to him coming off the bench is that instead of projecting 36 minutes, I think he project 31 or 32. I still expect him to be in the closing lineups. I still expect D'Anthony Melton to play around 22 minutes. It's basically just shuffling, who they're on the floor with mostly. So I still think that there is some upside for Maxey at 6,200, most likely playing a little bit north of 30 minutes.
Yeah, and it's a Philly spot. Like you said, it should be some tempo here potentially with a high-scoring game. Any willing to take some chances off the bench, that being a George Niang, maybe a Shake Milton?
I'm getting a little bit of Niang. I hope it goes away, but at the same time, it's just one of those, it's a 4-game slate. Nobody's playing him. In large field tournaments, if you want to hope that you get the 4-for-4 shooting or 5-for-5 shooting George Niang game, then fine. But certainly no amount of confidence there.
Yeah, it's because we're looking at in terms of sub 4K players on this slate. We're talking about these guys like Precious Achiuwa, Taurean Prince. We mentioned Boucher. It's a lot of volatile options that if you can figure out and find a way and get lucky which player is going to pop off, and if the high-owned guy has a dud game, you're really setting yourself up for success with your lineups.
Yeah,
and Niang has that upside with him, and he's going to be a 10th owned of potentially what Boucher will come in at. Not right. Boucher, Achiuwa.
Yeah. Achiuwa, yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of, I think, the same thing where, I said just playing some low-owned Boucher and hoping to get lucky there instead of on the backup that everybody is on. It's the same kind of thing with Niang. There's no level of confidence, but I saw that I was getting to him in the crunch I ran before the show. And so I kind of did a double take and was like, what the hell did I project Niang for? And I went back and looked and it was 14 fantasy points. And it was all right, the fact that 14 fantasy points is getting this guy to show up in lineups really just reinforces how little cheap value there is on this slate right now. And the fact that being able to get up to this 10K range, there's so many good plays in that 10K range to get to. So I think that makes sense. But also, for example, if Rudy Gobert is out and Reed is starting, then the need to get to the Chris Boucher and George Niang type guys decreases drastically.
Yeah. And based on what the news is going to break out, It's really difficult. There's some decent studs on the slate to talk on as we flip over to the Portland side of things. Dame Lillard's on one of those January tears yet again. He's at 10K on both sides, and he's been balling out. Every game's been Dame time for him. He had like I think 30 real life points in the first half. Last game out against Denver, he's just been playing really, really well. He's in good form, it seems like, uh, and the price has gone up, and he's 10K, and I don't think I'll get too much of him. I think I might prefer Harden to Dame potentially, but Dame has this upside, and I was lucky to ride the away for a little bit. Well, let's start with Dame here. How do we approach the 10K Dame Lillard? I know there's some other studs like there's Embiid, there's Kyrie with no KD on the last game of the night, but specifically Dame, he's been so hot. How do we keep up this momentum? Is this something where we shy away from?
So I think the ownership's going to ultimately be the biggest determining factor here. But the way I'm seeing it right now, like you have basically five guys in this range on DraftKings separated by $500 or less. Pascal Siakam at 9,700, Harden at 98, Kyrie at 99, Dame at 10, Curry at 10-1. I have Irving, Siakam, and Harden all projected slightly ahead of Dame. I also have Curry projected slightly ahead of Dame. So not by a lot. Like I think all of these guys are more or less the same, but Dame's getting the most ownership out of that group. Again, not by a lot. He's at 19.5%. Kyrie's at 17, Siakam's at 15, Harden's at 17, Curry's at 8. But he's just getting the most. So it's just naturally going. The way I build lineups is just kind of naturally going to start pushing Harden, Curry, Irving, Siakam in place of Lillard, just because they are, a bit lower owned. If that ownership changes, then, if you tell me that Lillard's the 8% owned one and everybody else's ownership went up, then I'm getting to a lot of Lillard. It's kind of it's really dependent on the ownership because they all look so similar to me. So it's a spot where right now I would not be getting to the field on Lillard. I'd be moving his exposure over to most of these other guys. But again, he's clearly a good play. Like he's close to as likely to succeed as any of these guys. I just have him slightly less likely and slightly more popular.
Yeah, and I think we'll see if there's any additional value that opens up to get us like one additional stud and raise like the raw projection of like the quote unquote optimal build. But Dame Lillard, yeah, I think you outlined that perfectly there of like where he just falls into on this slate. There's a fair share of studs, and he's just kind of just in the middle of that. Yeah. Well, Nurkic on the other side has his work cut out for him against this Embiid matchup. He comes in at 7,300 and 7,800 on FanDuel, $26 over there on Yahoo. I think he's an okay play. I'm not too excited to go to Nurk, but just because we've touched on Robert Williams, we've touched on maybe spending that with potentially maybe Achua or taking some chances with some other guys. Obviously, Embiid you can spend up for. I just think he's the kind of a casualty of the slate where I don't think I'll get too much of him. How do you feel about
how I see it too? And I was actually really surprised. I thought that I would get a good amount, but I think it's just that he's pulling 15% ownership. And so again, right now, and this could certainly change, but that's more ownership than Robert Williams was getting at a much cheaper price tag. That's, it's a little bit more ownership than he probably deserves. We have him with about a 12% chance of being optimal. So right now he's kind of just getting pushed down the list for me, and I'm getting to other centers. Again, like I'm playing a lot of Embiid, which really wouldn't be upset if I lost some of that just because 45% is a lot, but at the same time, if I'm going to get 45% Embiid at like 20% owned, I don't mind that either in what should be a really high scoring game. But it's just kind of like you said, casualty of the slate, kind of pushing Nurkic down. I'm getting to more Embiid, Siakam, Ayton, Claxton, Williams. I have no problem with any of those five guys that right now will be my five highest owned centers. And so it's not like I'm looking at it and saying like, oh, well, I want to get rid of one of them and make sure I'm getting Nurkic. If I'm not getting Nurkic and the reason is those five guys, then I'm fine with that. So yeah, like again, could change. Think he looks fine, but for my personal exposures, I'm not really getting there. If you wanted to take a stand somewhere else, that's fine. Like I don't think he's a bad play, but yeah, it's just a spot that I'm fading right now.
Yeah, to wrap up the rest of this team, the starters, Anthony Simons, I certainly think you can certainly play him at 6'3", where you get the 3-point bonus. I like getting above the field on a guy like him. I like his upside because of the volume of shots he potentially can take. It's kind of play like if Dame were to fail, Anthony Simons could certainly succeed. I think I like taking some chances with Anthony. Josh Hart, really tough for me to go there. I know he gets a bunch of rebounds and can fill up the stat sheet in various ways outside of raw points, but it's so difficult for me to play a guy like Josh Hart. He comes in at 4,900, and Jeremy Grant 6,900. And it just always has sneaky tournament upside when he's low owned, and yet again sub 10%. Jeremy Grant. How do you wrap up the rest of these starters? How do you feel about them tonight?
I'm starting to feel scared by how little Portland I'm getting to at the moment, but I think it's just a result of how much ownership they're getting. And they're a team that looks like a bunch of good plays, but nothing exceptional. And so it seems like I'm just kind of pivoting away from them a lot. Josh Hart's price tag on DraftKings looks great at 4,900. He's going to show up in a lot of the top projected lineups that you build, and he is my highest owned Blazer right now. But I'm getting to like 17-18%. So I'm still around half of the projected field. Simon's pulling 20% at 6,300. I think he's a good play in that he's going to play 35, 36 minutes, most likely in a high scoring game. He's averaged 0.87 DraftKings points per minute in the games he's played with Lillard and Nurkic this year. But it's just like, this is an example. I had said that I was getting some Malcolm Brogdon at 5,900. I think Simons projects better by a few points. I don't think he's going to beat Malcolm Brogdon 5 out of every 6 times or 6 out of every 7 times. And so it just becomes an easy spot where, with it being a 4-game slate, it can be difficult to find low owned guys that have any semblance of upside. Brogdon at least has that. And so that's the spot where I think I'm just getting some Brogdon where other people are playing Simons, which I'm fine with in large field tournaments. I certainly wouldn't want to do it in like cash or anything like that. But in large fields, I'm fine with that. We talked about all of the potential pivots around Dame, talked about Nurkic, and then, Grant just kind of difficult to get to at 6,900 with Lillard active. The usage rate comes down. If you want to throw some darts at like Drew Eubanks in non-Nurkic lineups, I think that's fine. Again, that becomes a lot less appealing once or if Gobert gets rolled out. But if we're in that situation where you don't get the Naz Reid value, then I'm okay with that. But I'm just pretty much underweight on this team, which is really scary because I do like the spot. It's just the ownership scaring me off.
Yeah, so it makes things. I know there's some like other sub 4K pivots here, right? You mentioned Eubanks 3,200, Gary Payton, Nasir Little. Any interest in taking some chances on them? Would it be Eubanks your preference there out of the sub 4K guys here?
Out of the sub 4K guys on Portland, yeah, I'm getting to the most Eubanks. I think I want to double check on Gary Payton because I think he's reasonable. But what position is Gary Payton on here?
Gary Payton, I believe, is guard.
Point guard, shooting guard.
Yeah.
I was looking at small forward. Yeah, so I have like 3% Payton right now. I'd have like 8% Eubanks.
Okay. Yeah, it's just like the nature of this slate. Usually these guys are not usually in play in big 9-game slates, but the way we're trying to get into kind of the stars and scrubs build, we're looking for potential pivots. And one of these certainly can pay off. And I think Eubanks could have a pathway there. An easy pathway is Nurk foul trouble, and Eubanks finds a way to get 4 or 5 extra minutes than he usually does. But it's Embiid on the other side. That can certainly happen. But it's just one pathway where Eubanks could succeed at 3,200. Interesting situation there to break down. I know it's an intriguing team to target a good game environment, but like similar to you, I just don't know how much I'll get to this team. But click that like button for us as we head on to this last game of the night. Brooklyn goes into the Valley and takes on Phoenix, and we get the return of Kyrie Irving. Kyrie Irving is gonna play today. He comes in at 9,900 and 9,200 on DraftKings and FanDuel. Looks outstanding across the board, even at $38 on Yahoo. We've seen a huge price bump in Ben Simmons as he's gone up all the way to $7,100 and $7,400, and $26 on Yahoo. I still think is a fine option to go to. But the rest of this team with Kyrie coming back, he just takes the shine away. He's going to potentially shoot the ball 25, 30 times in a spot with no KD. He looks outstanding. He's by far one of my favorite spend ups on this slate. How do you feel about Kyrie? And then Ben Simmons, the other guy to talk on, who had a triple-double last time out.
Yeah, I think Kyrie looks great. He's one of the guys I mentioned when we talked about Dame, where if he's just going to be similarly owned to Lillard, I'm going to get more Kyrie just because he projects a little bit better for me. And it's one that, like Lillard obviously is going to play a lot of minutes, so is Harden, but I'm pretty comfortable giving Kyrie 38 minutes here. I went 37 on Dame, 36 on Harden. It's just that they have no scoring when he's out. You saw that issue last game where they just couldn't score. Like you're relying on Joe Harris, Seth Curry, and Cam Thomas. Not that I expect Thomas to be in the rotation today, but that's kind of what they were relying on last game. TJ Warren. It's just not they don't have scoring if Kyrie's out. So I'm expecting big minutes from him. He played 38 in each of his last two. In the last game that Durant played, Kyrie played 40. I just expect him to be on the floor for most of this game, which is nice. And then he has about a 32.5% usage rate without Durant on the floor this year. He's just clearly a very, very good point per minute guy. 1.3 DraftKings points per minute, 26.5% assist percentage. Again, I think all these guys are very, very close, but Kyrie at a little bit less ownership looks good to me. Beyond that, Simmons price tag came up. My concern with him is that he played 34 minutes last game, but that was a game where, again, you really, really needed his playmaking out there without Kyrie as well. In the previous game where Durant was out, but Kyrie was in, Simmons only played 26 minutes. He didn't close the game. He's somebody that down the stretch we know has difficulty being on the floor because he can't shoot free throws. So I went 30 minutes on him here. I'm just not comfortable going back to that 34, knowing that they're not in a situation where they have to have him running point because nobody else is capable of doing it. So I'm a little concerned about his playing time here, and the price tag came up to 7,100. So it makes it tough to get there. The ceiling is still obviously very high, but also takes a hit in terms of assist percentage with Kyrie back. The only other guy from the Nets that I am getting to a bit is Claxton. He's only pulling 8.5% ownership. He's $7,400. I expect him to play 30 to 32 minutes here. He sees a bump in production without Durant on the floor, which is actually not something you can say about almost anybody on this team except for Kyrie Irving and Claxton, because again, everybody else on this team sucks so bad that even taking Kevin Durant out doesn't make it better. But you get increased playing time for Claxton here. You get a good point per minute guy. You get a decent matchup. I mean, 111 implied total for Brooklyn. As long as he's not going to get much ownership here, I am interested in getting the Claxton. But that's another spot where, like, for example, I said that I wasn't getting to Nurk. If by the time we get to lock, that 15% ownership on Nurkic is 12, and this 8% ownership on Claxton is 12, I'm going to end up just getting to both of them. But right now, where you're just telling me I can have Claxton for half the ownership of Nurkic, and I think they're pretty comparable, I'm just going to get more Claxton.
Yeah, no, that's a great breakdown for the Nets tonight. I think it's an interesting spot in Phoenix on the other side. But before we move on to Phoenix, we have a $10 super chat from Jorge asking you, would you prioritize any matchup to stack today, Adam? Or who looks great to you to stack?
So I don't tip for NBA. I'm not like going out of my way to stack anything. If you had to pick a game to stack for whatever reason, I think it would probably be Toronto, Minnesota. Philadelphia, Portland, we know is getting some ownership, particularly the Portland side. That game has the 234 total, 2-point spread, all that looks really good. But I think Toronto, just because you have so many guys there, they're going to play big minutes. And then with Minnesota, there's a very good chance that you end up getting Naz Reid plus, a little bit of a bump for Anderson, Prince, all those guys. If I just, for whatever reason, hypothetically, we're just choosing one game to stack, I think I'd probably go Toronto, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Especially if Gobert's out.
Yeah, it's going to come down to some news. Like you said, not the biggest game stacker proponent, even on a 4-game slate. I mean, you'll naturally maybe get some depending on how value breaks out. The rest of this Brooklyn team, is there, let's say if for some reason if Kyrie Irving were to fail, that certainly can happen. Who do you think picks up the biggest potential spot where they got hot? Is it a Seth Curry or TJ Warren?
I guess. I think if Kyrie fails, they probably just get their asses beat.
To this Phoenix? Yeah, they probably do.
To anybody,
to
my high school team. They're so bad. If somebody does just get hot and become the hot hand here, it's probably Curry, Warren, Harris, one of those guys. We know it's not Ben Simmons. It's not Claxton in terms of because he's not doing anything other than getting putbacks or rim running. So it would have to be one of those guys. But again, Joe Harris is god awful this year. TJ Warren, I guess, is probably the most likely answer, but he's probably also not going to play enough minutes for that to happen. I think the real answer is if you just get a bad Kyrie game, you probably just get a big Suns win.
Yeah, that's certainly on the table. But something that everyone should definitely check out is our NBA Bet Pro package, where you can get a free 7-day trial if you use the link in the description. There have been several users who have been able to make thousands of dollars in the past month using NBA Bet Pro. And I definitely think you should take advantage of that. I've had my fair share of success here. And I think it's well worth your time to take advantage of this trial. It's been super exciting. The data and tools team has put in lots and lots of work behind the algorithm to get this on a very sound state, to take advantage of value bets and player prop betting specifically. And you get to leverage the same stochastic projections to take your game in the player prop streets and take them to the whole another level. And I've had a lot of success with player prop betting, and I certainly think you will as well. We got another super chat from the Claw 28. Where is the best play to see NBA starting lineups? My guess is you wanted to say where's the best place to see NBA starting lineups. And there have been a sponsor for us before, and I'll go ahead and say it. You can go to Underdog NBA or any NBA beat reporter Twitter feed out there to get the best spots for starting lineups.
Yeah, I think so. Like for starting lineup updates, like confirmed starting lineups, it's Twitter and Underdog's account. For if you're asking, like, because I know we had a thing the other day where RotoWire, we kind of made fun of RotoWire because they put out like the Pelicans starting lineup and they had Alvarado projected ahead of McCollum. So it came up like, well, where do you look for starting lineups? If you're just like looking for projected starting lineups, I have no idea where the best is because I don't look for them. But as far as actually getting the news, getting the information, it's the Underdog Twitter account.
Yeah, and keep in mind, any beat reporter, any news aggregator can make a mistake. So just be aware of that. No one's perfect. Just
I mean, we saw it the other day with Jalen Williams when every single starting lineup account tweeted out at the same time that the wrong Jalen Williams was starting.
And that's an easy one to make a mistake. I'll give them a pass on that one. But yeah, it can happen to anyone. And there's some amazing sources out there. So hope that helps, and we appreciate that super chat. 199 super chat from the Claw 28. And now we'll go on to the next game, next team, the final team of the night, Phoenix side of things, where they're still awfully shorthanded. No campaign, no Devin Booker, no Shamet, no Josh Okogie, no Chris Paul. And we're going to be dealt with the return of Cam Johnson tonight. He's coming back from a knee surgery, so I have no idea what those minutes look like. I'll be even shocked to see if he plays mid-20s minutes. I think they're going to be cautious with him. He is their starting guy. And as they slowly ramp up those minutes, we'll see what those look like. He comes in at 5K and 4,500 over there on FanDuel. Tough for me to go to him. But the situation that broke out last game was Dwayne Washington Jr. was not in the rotation. And where things get interesting here is Saben Lee. Saben Lee, we've played him before when he was at Detroit. And earlier in the day, he was asked if he was going to start. His 10-day contract ends on Friday. My prediction here is the Phoenix front office is just trying to save minutes and save bodies here until Chris Paul comes back. Chris Paul was questionable. And if I were to make a guess here is I think they just run out Saben Lee one more time at $3,200. I shared a beat reporter tweet to Jordan, if he wants to pull that up, what they said about Saben Lee. But I think Saben Lee's right now, even with Naz Reid potentially, if Reid starts over Gobert, he'll be the best point per dollar play. But with the situation with Gobert questionable, I think Saben Lee right now, he's getting so much ownership. It's kind of a starting point of our lineups. Do you agree there?
Yes and no. I think Dwayne Washington's starting today.
Wow.
But I still think Saben Lee is a better play at 3,200 than Washington is at 5K. The ownership would be concerning, but I guess I should say I have no idea which of them is starting. My guess is they go back to Dwayne Washington. I think the reason Dwayne Washington didn't play is because Monty Williams doesn't trust him. And with Landry Shamet back and Saben Lee available, there's no real role for Dwayne Washington.
Well, Shamet is out, right?
No, I'm saying last game when he DMP'd. There's no role for Washington when Shamet's in and Lee is there because they don't trust Washington to run the offense and make good decisions. They have Shamet who can handle the ball and score a bit, provide some scoring. And then you have Saben Lee as the backup point guard. And they both ended up playing a bunch of minutes. Here, I think you go back to what they were doing previously when Shamet was out, where Dwayne Washington was starting but not closing because, again, they don't trust him at all down the stretch, and Monty Williams doesn't like him. But that's my guess, is that you get Dwayne Washington starting and you get like 22 to 24 minutes from Washington. You get like 24 to 26 from Saben Lee, and it still makes Saben Lee look really good at 3,200. But again, that's a spot where if Saban Lee is basically if Saban Lee is starting, I think you project Saban Lee for a lot of minutes because that would tell you that we already know that they seem to trust him ahead of Dwayne Washington. And now they would just be giving him the start also. If they start Dwayne Washington, I think that you can take a chance on Washington at 5K just because of the scoring upside. But I still think there's a very good chance Saban Lee closes the game and plays more minutes.
Before we move on with this Phoenix game, I got to touch on a $2 super chat from El Negro Loco. If you want news gods news updates, you can find them in the Stokastic Discord, and where he's working hard, and on his Twitter as well. And he's sharing all the news as they break as well. So feel free to give him a follow. He's working hard behind the scenes here as well. You can find those breaking news updates in our Discord as well. If you're looking for the place to get starting lineups, he's in there all the time. So shout out to News God as well. But going on to the rest of this Phoenix team, I like potentially getting above the field on a guy like DeAndre Ayton tonight. I think 7,700 and 7,400. I'd prefer Ayton to Nurkic the way things stand right now. Mikal Bridges, Damian Lee, also guys who are getting a ton of ownership. Mikal Bridges is, I think, priced appropriately for this role. I have no lean one way or the other. I'm hoping I get in with the field type of ownership. How do you feel about Mikal Bridges specifically? I think it's an interesting spot where he can get a ton of usage, but still not sold at this price tag.
Yeah, I'm getting around half the field on him. I think the biggest selling point is that he's going to play a lot of minutes. That's what Mikal Bridges does. He does get a bump in usage under these conditions, but the thing is, this season, like any combination of guys you take off, whether you just take off Devin Booker, whether you take off Devin Booker and Chris Paul, you can take off Devin Booker, Chris Paul, and Cameron Payne. You're not going to find like a sample where Mikal Bridges has a usage rate north of 20%. Sure, he goes from like 16 or 17 to like 18 and a half or 19, but it's not, you're still not getting that consistent usage. You'll get games here and there where he just makes his shots and keeps taking them. And, that's partly a function of just being on the floor for so many minutes as well. So I don't think he's a bad play, but I do think that I can just kind of get to some other forwards. This is another one where, I said I was getting to Tobias Harris, and I don't really like Tobias Harris, but I think he looks pretty similar in terms of projection to Mikal Bridges, and he's getting 1.5 times. Bridges is getting 1.5 times the ownership. So that's another spot where he's just kind of turning into some Harris for me. I don't totally understand the Damian Lee ownership at 16%. I don't think, like, I have him in for 26 minutes. I think the big question there, if Dwayne Washington's not in this rotation, then I think Damian Lee has to play a lot of minutes. But, again, my expectation is that the point guard minutes are being split in some manner between Washington and Saban Lee, in which case that's leaving you the wing minutes to play like mid 20s for Damian Lee, mid to upper 20s, but he's not a very good point per minute guy. He's pulling 15% ownership. I don't really see that. Torrey Craig is interesting to me because he's only 4,500. He's pulling 17%. I think he plays around 28 minutes here. And he's just at a useful price point. My exposure to him will certainly come down if I can turn that into Naz Reid. But right now, going under the assumption that Gobert is playing, Torrey Craig looks like a pretty useful piece to me. And then DeAndre Ayton, 7,700, does see a nice usage bump without Devin Booker on the floor. He's in a good matchup here. Brooklyn doesn't really have anything defensively, so that's good for him. He also one very interesting rotational piece last game, and I don't know if they'll go this route with Cam Johnson back or not. Jock Landale and DeAndre Ayton played 8 minutes next to each other in the first 3 quarters of last game. Neither of them played in the fourth quarter of a blowout. If they opt to go the route where they play Landale and Ayton alongside each other a bit, then they play Cam Johnson at the 3, and that's one way that they soak up these minutes that have been vacated by Landry Shamet. Not only does that make Lansdale look better because he'd be able to play more minutes, but you could also see more minutes for Ayton. So I have Ayton projected for 32 minutes. I have Landale at 16, but I think there's some chance that you get like 34, 35 from Ayton and you get like 18, 19, 20 from Landale.
We got word that Rudy Gobert is out, and I think you did a great job of breaking down the Phoenix situation. And I don't know. I mean, the Washington situation, like you said, it is very difficult to pinpoint, but I think we can play it safe with Saban Lee. Well, let's circle back on the Minnesota situation now. With the Gobert being ruled out, is it just kind of lock and load, Naz Reid?
Yes. And I talked about it when we were there, but like with this being a 4-gamer and the fact that it seems like really cheap value is useful just based on how much Saban Lee I'm getting, but also how much George Niang with a 14-point projection I was getting and how much Chris Boucher I was getting. I'm willing to play Luka Garza and Naz Reid together right now as well, just because Garza is such a good point per minute guy. Even if things sort of just go reasonably according to plan and you get like 32 for Reid, 16 for Garza, there's still a decent chance that Garza beats Boucher and Niang and all these other terrible plays that I appear to be playing as of right now. But also he's, the first beneficiary if Reid does get in foul trouble. And because they're both so cheap, even if you get a situation where let's say Naz Reid gets in some foul trouble, but he still plays 26 minutes. And so Garza plays like 20 or 22 or something, Reid's still probably paying off 4,600 and Garza smashing 3K at the same time.
Yeah, it certainly opens up a lot there. And I definitely think we could take advantage of that situation. I think Naz Reid will certainly get a lot of ownership. He'll be one of the highest owned players on the slate for sure. I think another situation to keep an eye on is the Anthony Edwards situation. I don't think we got that news yet, but it's going to be a fun slate. I do think potential late swap options, if we get some Phoenix news, specifically what Monty Williams is going to do with Dwayne Washington Jr. We'll see what happens there. But any final thoughts on the slate, Adam, before we hand things off to Live Before Lock?
Overall, I just think it looks like a pretty fun tournament slate. Probably became a little bit less fun now that we have Reid, just because that's a very obvious play that's difficult to get away from. But it's just a slate where it's kind of boom or bust, but there's just a lot of very mediocre plays pulling a lot of ownership, and then a lot of other slightly worse but still mediocre plays not pulling ownership. And so I think those slates are kind of just fun where you can flip that around, hope to run good, and find yourself at the top of tournaments.
I completely agree with you there. If everyone can click that like button for us before we hand things off to Greg and Eric and they cause a ruckus, I want to thank Jordan Klein being a great producer yet again for us. Check advantage of all those trials that we have, and good luck tonight. And hopefully one of you guys can take down a tournament.
Yo, it's that time of week again. Time to induct some of you fine people into the Stokastic Hall of Fame. Give away some free subscriptions for a month to Stokastic Plus Platinum. And all you got to do to get your wonderful picture, screenshot, face, whatever it is up here, and your big win is download the Stokastic profile picture at stokastic.com/avatar and tweet your wins at Stokastic Hall of Fame, Stokastic HOF. That'll get you right here up on the board. We'll do the bragging for you. And also, you win a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, $120 value. Let's kick it off, see what we've got to work with on this fine week. First up, it's Bobby Nissan. Thanks for another big win. Special thanks to the boys for all the great content. $55,000 there and a $50,000 win in first place as well in the NBA Baller. Followed up by Anthony Jimenez. Giant shout out to you guys. I swear if it wasn't for the entire Stokastic team, I'd be broke. Appreciate the hard work with a $75,000 win. Second place right there. Little hockey action. Love to see it. And then S. Schaefer. Not the first time he's been on here. I caught a ride on the NBA takedown chop train in the $15 fadeaway on the 8th. Crunched my ticket using Stokastic's suite of tools with additional analysis thanks to Live Before Lock and the crew. $3,090 there, another big win. And then how about Eric Johnston following this one up? These guys just don't miss. Another great night with Stokastic. You got 1,500, then you got 1,750. And if you look at the next one, it's Eric Johnston. Stokastic comes through again in the clutch, best in the business, second place in the 20K NBA putback for another $2,500. Huge week, Eric. Congrats, man. And how about Swaz or OZB with a $1,700 or $1,100 win on $46. $46 entered there. Over $1,400 in profit today. Binked on NBA tiers. Best day of my DFS lifetime. Congrats, man. That's awesome. And then Adam Y with a 1K win. Finally took one down. First in the PGA short game. Turned my $1 into 1,000. Thanks to the awesome folks at Content and Stokastic. Shout out to Eric Lindquist and Jazz Raz DFS. And James Sanderson on a heater in NHL. Love the show with Slim, Cliffy, and Josh. It is a great show. You should check that out. That is me vouching for them. Now give me my free month. All right. Well, you could ask nicer, but hey, $600 in the hip check. Congratulations, man. Big stuff there as well. And Jay up next. Use the Stokastic tools to take third in the $5 single entry, second in the $3 three max. Thanks for the great tools and content. We got $1,500 there between the single back and the huddle. Congrats, Jay. And Scott Terman, top plays. Thanks to Eric Lindquist, top plays. I got third out of almost 8,000 people. With the free month and 150, I can move up in entry fees. That is what we want to see, man. Getting the free month, moving up higher, getting the win. Lovely stuff. And then Kanan. I don't know why my avatar pick hasn't changed, but how about that free month? Appreciate you fellas by a ton. By far my most watched program. Quarter Jukebox. I've said it once, I'll say it again. It doesn't matter what your entry fee is. If you want to get up here, if you want to get the free month, inducted into the Hall of Fame, you can get in the Quarter Jukebox. The nickel doesn't matter. Just has to be top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. And how about Powers 99? I won second in the 12,500 and one tournament last night using Stokastic's premium tools. Love to see it. Thanks for all your content, gentlemen. $500 in the 20 entry max and one. And Jay, Justin, and Lou, 2 big hits this week because of everyone at Stokastic, and you, Justin, and Lou, I guess. $150 there in that one, second place, followed up by Andrew. Another big ROI night, courtesy of the projections over at Stokastic. Nice. Quarter Jukebox. Again, look, $300. Look at the ROI on that. It's lovely. Mark Cato edged out multiple Luka lineups in hot pursuit. Shout out to Stokastic for the best content, hands down. First place, $100 there. And a couple left before we say goodbye for the week. Bill, thanking Stokastic and our boy Matt Savoca. Thanks, Matt. First big win. Your tepid endorsement of Russell Wilson convinced me to play him. Hoping this qualifies for the free month. Finding this site has improved my ROI considerably. Keep up the great work. And $1,000 win going to Bill there. We rounded out with CZAP 2 times in 1 week. Thanks, guys, for everything. Let's go. I'll definitely take a free month or 2. Only 1, but you still get it with the $400 and the $200 in the piggy bank, like I said, and the piggy bank again.
Most inspirational speaks of all time. Go. I'm ready, by the way, Jordan.
Don't know who that is.
You know Yoel Romero's?
No, but I'm so unbelievably deep into UFC this week.
Not that deep, because Yoel Romero was in the UFC. What's going on, guys? And welcome to the NBA Live Before Lock Show. We are sponsored by Prize Picks today. So I know Eric's got to be excited about that because he could give out some of his favorite Prize Picks plays later on in the show. As you guys come in, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and like it twice for Jordan Klein. He's feeling great and rested today, and I'm pretty excited for this one. We've got just a 4-game slate, and most of the pertinent news has already come out. So we just got word that Rudy Gobert isn't going to play again, so we'll be hitting on that. We got Anthony Edwards is questionable. Eric, how are you doing today? Are you as well rested as Jordan Klein?
Definitely not, because I have a dog that wasn't feeling good this morning. So unlike somebody, I didn't get to sleep in. I'm going on about 4 hours of sleep, but we're going to get through it. I'm glad he feels great. That was very inspiring to hear him let me know just how great he feels being able to sleep in He didn't have work in the morning anyway, so it didn't matter.
And I don't know why, but we got a lot of people in the chat discussing the Waffle House. If you're going into a Waffle House, number one, you can't even work at a Waffle House unless you're a black belt in some sort of martial art. I'm almost positive that's a prerequisite because if you're working at a Waffle House, you have to be able to defend yourself properly. And that's just something at Waffle Houses that, for whatever reason, when I see these fights pop up on Twitter, like 75% of them take place in either a Waffle House or a Walmart. And for whatever reason, shit goes down at Waffle House and Walmart. Have you ever been to a Waffle House?
Yeah, I went to one. I went to the Masters last year, and they have them all over Georgia.
Were there fights in them when you were there?
No, there weren't. But I definitely believe you. I saw Trevor Lawrence just walked in and got a standing ovation walking into Waffle House after the game the other night. That was pretty funny.
Yeah, I've never actually seen a Waffle House other than Twitter. Walmarts I've been in, Waffle Houses less so. But as for the NBA slate, let's start to talk about the implications of Rudy Gobert sitting. Now, he didn't play yesterday. We saw Naz Reid draw the start. He was massively popular. Went okay, right? If we played Naz Reid, we didn't hate it. If you guys played not Naz Reid in some lines, didn't hate it either. He was pretty neutral. Got into foul trouble guarding Nikola Jokic, was really effective when he was on the court. But what are you expecting from Naz Reid today with Rudy Gobert out?
I'm going to play 100% again. I think it's kind of a no-brainer. Click him first. It's also a 4-game slate, and there isn't as much value as what there was yesterday, and he's just showing up in 100% of lineups. He projects out way better than everybody else. His price for whatever, God knows what reason, is going down 200 from yesterday even. I think him, Kyle Anderson, Jaden McDaniels, Taurean Prince, like all these guys are just showing up in a bazillion of my lineups.
Yeah, and it's kind of hard to avoid, especially when, once again, we've got Anthony Edwards being listed as questionable. But just because it's a 4-game slate, I agree with you. Naz Reid clearly projects as one of the top points per dollar plays on slate, probably the best points per dollar play. And I don't really think there's any pushback against that. I think everybody should be playing Naz Reid, no doubt, in cash games. And then even in tournaments, play a lot of them. Eric said 100%, no issue with that. And we're talking about that more from a DraftKings perspective. But even on FanDuel, where he's center only at 5,000, still a really strong play. Feel better about him on DraftKings just because he's the power forward and center. Hard to say he's a all-in 100% type guy on FanDuel, but play him in cash games on both sites for sure. Are you going to be taking a look at any of his backups tonight?
Yeah. So now I can go to Luka Garza, even though yesterday was probably the day that you should have gone to Luka Garza with the foul trouble. If you tell me Luka gets 18, 20 minutes on a 4-game slate, I think you're just playing him. And I think there's just that potential. You have another difficult matchup for Naz Reid against Pascal Siakam. Wouldn't shock me again if you run into a foul trouble situation like that. And for me, it's just the fact that he's a flat 3K. We have a overall lack of value on this slate. Why not have a little bit in your life? I have no problem playing them together, which is something that I definitely didn't do yesterday. Well, I mean, I didn't have any Luka Garza yesterday, but Naz Reid, he's going to be 100% play. I just don't see any way around it in my lineups and the way that I build things. And then Luka Garza, I'm going to have him in a couple of them there. He's just so offensively forward when he's on a floor. Like there's nothing else that he can do defensively. Jokic looked like a monster standing next to him. And I've stood next to Luka Garza back in the day. He's a pretty big dude. So that just kind of tells you like he was going to get dominated by Jokic. He did. This is a better spot where if you are playing like Precious Achiuwa, Chris Boucher in that second unit, I think he can kind of handle his own, not be as much of a defensive liability. So played 17 minutes yesterday. I think you're looking at 18 to 20 again here tonight if it's competitive.
Why were you standing next to Luka Garza? Like you said that as a matter of fact, like everybody stood next to Luka Garza. We all know why were you standing next to Luka Garza?
College basketball. I went to Iowa game. He was there forever, I feel like. But Iowa State.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. All right, that makes sense. You guys did go.
I went to Iowa State. Yeah,
no,
different schools, just rival schools.
Yeah. No, I understand. All right, I can see it from that. It's not like you guys were, like Eiffel Tower, high five or anything like that. You guys just happened to be next to each other at one point.
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, baby. Yeah.
I was just trying to think about the scenarios where you would have been standing next or near
Garzilla. That's it.
Is there also any, because in the second half of the game, if I'm not mistaken, Nathan Knight checked in ahead of Luka Garza. Is there any chance he's the backup center instead of Garza?
A little bit, and then you're just dead with those lineups. But I'm not getting Luka Garza in like 20% of lineups or anything. Like he's showing up for me. What did I get in the last run? At 6%. He's coming in at 6.6% ownership. Like it's not I'm just simply talking about the Minnesota situation. It's kind of the key to the entire slate. Now without Rudy Gobert, you have a chance of no Anthony Edwards. There's just a lot of potential there. And so I'm playing a lot of those guys. He's just another dude who goes into that bucket.
And by the way, if you guys have any questions for us in Discord, throw those in. We could answer some of those. And 4-game slate, I think we're going to have a lot of flexibility to answer really any questions that come in through Discord today. So if you guys
within reason.
No. Anything at all. If it relates to Eric's relationship with Luka Garza or any of the comments I made, we'll also be taking questions on that, Seth, if you're in the Discord channel. One of the perks of being a Stokastic Platinum Plus member, which, by the way, 5-day free trial if you click on the link that we have below. And then also that's available. Jordan, if you could throw that into the YouTube chat. So if you guys want the ability to answer any questions we have at all in our Discord channel, one of the perks, you got access to that for a 5-day free trial. But in addition, of course, it's some stuff that's going to help you with NBA DFS player projections, ownership projections, our lineup generator, which I think we're going to be taking a look at in a little bit, boom bust tool. So lots of really, really useful stuff over at stokastic.com. But let's talk about the other injuries on Minnesota, because Anthony Edwards is questionable, and kind of the same thing I asked you yesterday. Is this a legitimate questionable tag? Is it not legitimate, or are you just unsure when it comes to Edwards?
No, I think it's legitimate. I think this has just been a lingering issue, and we haven't seen him sit. Eventually, you're going to see him sit. Like it would be very weird to me if they wouldn't find a spot to give him rest. Now, is it here off of 37 minutes yesterday? He kind of looked a little bit rough to me even yesterday watching that game on ESPN, but like, I don't know what to make of it. It's a guy at 8,900 with a fantasy point per minute rate around 1.15 on the season. He's somebody that I would just get to a lot of today if he ends up playing. And if he doesn't, it opens up absolutely everybody on the Minnesota side. I do not have a lean. I also think because Golden State, Boston, pretty clear cut which pieces I'm getting to. There's not a ton of like super great value that exists there. It's going to be very easy to adjust my lineups to whatever does happen with that news, as long as it comes out before 8 p.m. Eastern time, your standard lock time there. But I have no lean one way or the other.
By the way, we also have very important questions coming in. These are the questions I was hoping to get. So
I knew it was going to get stupid.
Oh yeah. But I also want to. We'll finish talking about the Minnesota Timberwolves first, so we make sure 4 games late we turn over every single stone possible, because we're going to be here for an hour and a half. So sure. Anthony Edwards, do you know how many games he's missed this year?
I'm guessing 0 with the way you said that.
It is 0, and he's been on the injury report a bunch lately. So yeah. I'm with you. One of these games, he's going after City. He isn't 100%. We've seen him get hurt in games, and he hasn't been able to return. That's happened a couple times this year where he's gotten banged up. This hip issue has been an issue for
a long time.
Yeah, let's see. When did he first get hurt?
It's just been lingering, and I think he's going to sit, and he just never does. So eventually he's going to.
Yeah. January 6th was the game he first hurt his hip. And, actually it wasn't. So here, it was January 4th against Portland. He hurt his hip, returned to the game. Then he hurt his hip again January 6th, the next game, and wasn't able to return. Then January 11th, he hurt his hip and was able to return to the game. So, looking at over the last 2.5 weeks, 3 times he's had to go to the locker room with a hip issue. 1 time he wasn't able to finish the game. Twice he was. And they keep listing him as questionable on the injury report. So clearly he's not 100%. And I'm with you. One of these games he's going to sit. I have a feeling he's just kind of been warming up to see how he feels, and then he's tried to talk himself into playing. But the other one too, who I'm with you, that's on the injury report, and a pretty big one, Taurean Prince is questionable.
Yep.
And whether he is in or out, I think is very, very pertinent for this slate. Taurean Prince typically would not matter all that much, but for tonight, where it's a small slate, only 4 games, he's $3,600 on DraftKings. On FanDuel, Taurean Prince is $4,700. He's much less relevant as far as FanDuel is concerned, but still somebody to be worth considering. He's kind of hard to get away from at $3,600 on DraftKings. How are you going to handle him? Do you think he plays? And what happens if he sits?
I have no idea. It's another guy. It's a back-to-back, second leg of a back-to-back. Really hard to predict what's going to happen. I don't think you really even need to account for it. With Golden State and Boston being the early game, we run into Toronto, Minnesota. I think it's pretty simple. Like for me, he plays, you're going to get to him. The price is right. He's 3,600. He gives you access to some studs coming up a little bit later. The Kyrie Irvings, the Joel Embiids, the James Hardens of the world, Damian Lillard pulling a lot of ownership. Like there's a lot of studs to get to later on, and 3,600 would come in a lot of handy. And if he doesn't play, I mean, you could be having a Wendell Moore Jr. conversation about whether or not you think he plays enough minutes to be viable. He's had 2 starts this season, 16 and 20 minutes in both of those starts. Can be serviceable going back to his Duke days. I expect him to be a better fantasy point per minute guy than he's been at 0.75. He's a rookie on a 2-way. Wendell Moore Jr. is just a dude. But it's kind of in the back of my mind just because it is just a 4-game slate. Those are the kind of plays that can maybe give you some differentiation. And it would not surprise me if he just kind of emerged as a guy who ended up playing more than we think.
And then the other thing that we should also be factoring in here, in addition, so we talked about guys that are, pretty important to Minnesota. Austin Rivers has played some bigger minutes as of late, and he's also questionable. So you get into the scenario where if Taurean Prince is out, I think you can make a case that Rivers becomes a viable value option just because of the size of the slate and just the overall lack of players and cheap guys we could go to. But if Austin Rivers doesn't play and Taurean Prince doesn't play, could we look at somebody like Jalen Noel today or Jaden McDaniels to get extended minutes? Are there any real off-the-wall plays that could potentially benefit if there is no Prince or Rivers for Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, Wendell Moore Jr. is off the wall. I don't know how much more off the wall you want me to get than that. I mean, that is from the frickin' top rope. He played 9 minutes yesterday. It's just kind of whatever. The Jalen Noel thing's been strange to me. His minutes have gone down, down, down. Part of that is Taurean Prince played 32 yesterday. I have no feel on whether or not Taurean Prince, whether or not Anthony Edwards play here on this back-to-back. But for me, it just becomes a very clear-cut priority. You're going to get to all of the starting 5. It doesn't matter who they are for Minnesota. You're just getting to whomever starts in that starting 5. And then for me, you can get to shares of Luka Garza, assuming he's coming off the bench. You can get to shares of Wendell Moore Jr. coming off the bench. I even think, is Matt Rayen still with this basketball team? Because he's played, when he was on that 2-way deal, he played with the Lakers earlier this season, came over and was playing low teens minutes. He got to 21 minutes on the second. He's had spots where he just didn't play whatsoever. If he's with the basketball team, that's something we should probably figure out quickly.
He's with the team. I have him for 0 minutes, though.
Yeah.
At least as of now. But
as of now, if you take Taurean Prince, that's 32 minutes to go spread around across the laundry room. So have fun with it.
But yeah, I'm almost positive that he is with that he's with the team right now.
Yeah, it had him as a DNP. I'm looking at him on the bench yesterday. So there you go. Yes.
Yeah. He's not checked into a game since January 11th. He's been with the squad, just not really playing. But for reference, what you're saying before, there was a stretch where he was getting not significant minutes, but was playing with the team when he first came over from the Lakers. 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 7 minutes, 2 minutes. His peak in terms of playing time was January 2nd. So first game of the new year for the Minnesota Timberwolves. They played Matt Rayen 21 minutes. Guess how many fantasy points he poured out in that 21 minutes?
Not many.
4.
Not many.
Yeah, he had 5 points.
Seems bad.
And, 4 for FanDuel purposes. If I'm being nice, it was 5 for DraftKings because he hit a 3 and had a turnover. So pick your poison there. DraftKings, he had 5 fantasy points. FanDuel had 4. Fairly shitty on both sites, but he did get those minutes. We've seen him be willing to play them at least in one game for Matt Rayen. Are you ready to answer some questions, Eric?
I'm not excited for this. I know it's going to get weird.
All right. So we've got some questions to answer. If you guys have anything else to add to the Discord, throw them out to me and at myself and Eric as well, because I think Eric should be able to see some of these in writing. And also, we are sponsored by Prize Picks today. And this is one of the easiest ways possible that you guys can get 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Maybe you guys have been wanting to try out our tools, but you've just been unsure about it. Or maybe it's just something like, it seems expensive. Well, we've got our 5-day free trial, but also if you sign up over at Prize Picks for the first time using our link, you get 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. That comes in addition to up to $100 bonus on your first deposit. We got a super chat first, so we'll hit on the super chat. Then we'll get to some of the Discord questions. The first super chat is from Don Icewood. He wants to know, who is our favorite utility player on DK for $6,300 or less? Let's see, $6,300. This is utility, so we could pick anybody. That is Anthony Simons for me.
I'm going to go to, definitely Anthony Simons. Just kidding.
What were you thinking?
Oh, I was going to say Tobias Harris for a second, and then I realized that I had Simons for 3 more fantasy points than him. So there you go.
Yeah, Simons right there. And let me go check to see our latest ownership. to see where it's at with Simons now, because I haven't refreshed that since we started and I accidentally closed the tab out. So
see, these are the questions I'm here for. Paul Oster, Eric, if you play anyone from Golden State, Boston, who are you targeting? That is kind of, for me, the big question of the slate is how much of these guys to get to if there's no clarity with Minnesota in the next 40 minutes, because there's a lot of things that could change and you don't want to bypass the studs. Like, I think that's probably the easiest way to describe it is like, I need to get to Jason Tatum and Steph Curry on a slate like this where they're just going to be underowned if that news comes out later. Like, you're going to get a lot of savings, a lot of opportunity with them. I think just getting to Tatum, Curry, Brown, all of those guys at the top end is really kind of the key for it. Other pieces, I don't really find anybody a priority. I have a couple lineups with Clay, a couple lineups with Marcus Smart, a couple lineups with Draymond because it's a 4-game slate and I think they have upside, but I'm not really getting to anybody else in a prominent way. I see Wiggins is popular. I'm not really getting there. There's just some interesting spots. Like for me, keeping the small forward, power forward available for whatever happens with Minnesota is kind of something that's pretty important to this slate.
Just because you brought up some of the pay up options, I'm curious, who is the pay up option you have the most exposure to? My answer is much different across FanDuel and DraftKings, but I'm curious for you, most roster pay up option as of now, and then we'll hit on these pressing Discord questions.
Joel Embiid, not close.
Yeah, so it's Joel Embiid for me on DraftKings. FanDuel, it's Kyrie Irving, though. It's just because of the center eligibility for Joel Embiid on FanDuel, where if Naz Reid is your most rostered center on FanDuel, which I think he should be, it kind of takes Joel Embiid out of the mix of being the most rostered player. So DK, Embiid, FanDuel for me, it is Kyrie Irving, who's priced at $9,200 as point guard and shooting guard eligibility. The first question we have in our Discord chat is from Jordan Klein.
Oh my God.
No, Eric, what was your favorite experience with Luka Garza? It's because you were cut off there. It was kind of hard to know what you're doing, but I don't know. Were you bent at the waist while you were doing whatever it was you were just doing? Next question is from Jumpo. He wants to know, can I, this is a little bit different of a pace question. Can I play 2 Phoenix Lees in the same DK single entry?
Can I play what? With what? I'm sorry, I got distracted.
He wants to know if he could play multiple Lees in the same lineup. So he's talking about Damian Lee and Saban.
I would assume those are the two because I can't think of another one, but yeah, you can play them together. I mean, one's far more appealing than the other to me. So there you go.
Are you going to open up on which one is more appealing to you?
I hope we're both on the same page where it's Saban Lee.
Yes, it is Saban Lee for me. But, you never know. There could be something where you feel differently. But Saban Lee is also massively popular today. So you're talking about playing him. And by the way, I think you should play him in single entry for DraftKings purposes. Just to be aware, though, he is 70% owned on DraftKings, 62% owned on FanDuel. So the two most popular plays on FanDuel and DraftKings, same two dudes. DK, we've got Naz Reid at 80% projected ownership. Just a couple of days ago, Eric, you said to me, have we ever seen somebody who's north of 70% owned when it was Seth Curry the other day? Now we've got Saban Lee 70%, Naz Reid 80% on DraftKings, FanDuel 66% Naz Reid, 62% Saban Lee. Relative to those ownerships, do you have any issue with it?
No, none.
None at all.
Same play tons.
We've got Pat Clay Tomstar.
What?
Who is more rested for tonight's slate? Cam Johnson or Jordan Klein? So here's the difference. Jordan just got some extra sleep in this morning.
Here's the thing, though. I gotta say, this is the best part about Jordan Klein fucking up. The best thing by far. He's trying really hard with our jokes today. He's like really animated behind the camera. He's listening to everything we say. He's giving us a ton of attention. I mean, he's just like really trying today.
Yeah, he's well rested.
Oh, I think that's what it is. Oh, okay. Just saying.
Anyway,
it has nothing to do with the fact that you screwed up and you're trying to make good on it.
To me, it's a lot
not
funnier
his work
when
daddy on this show. No,
it's a lot funnier when Jordan screws up than when Adam does. I don't know why, but there's something just kind of lovable about it when Jordan does it, less so when Adam does.
Yeah, it's like, oh, shucky darn, slap the knee. It's hilarious. Adam's just like, Adam's where? Adam's doing what? Oh, okay, cool.
Again this week?
Sounds great. Again? Yeah. It's all right. Fine. We'll do 100 shows this week. That's cool.
Anyway, my answer is going to be Cam Johnson is being better rested because Jordan just got a couple extra hours of sleep in this morning. Cam Johnson hasn't played a basketball game since November 4th. That is a lot of rest. Can you imagine if he didn't, once again, I could see Adam doing this. I couldn't imagine Jordan not showing up for 2.5 months of work though.
Why is Adam catching strays on this? This is about Jordan screwing up. This is about Jordan's complication. Well, because it's Adam. That's true.
Yeah, it's just because it's just what correlates with screwing up, right? It's just what else comes to mind. It's like you're doing the Rorschach test. It's like, hey, you see this picture. What else does it make you think of?
Adam.
That's why.
Yeah.
Right? That's fair.
So true. Oh, that's good.
What's your answer from Pat Clay Thompson? Who's more rested, Cam Johnson or Jordan Klein?
Oh, Jordan Klein is chipper, so we're gonna have to go Jordan Klein.
Yeah.
Love you.
Oh boy, we got next question just from Mincash Merchant. He just wants me to do the BetMGM read.
Well, no, because we have different pictures now. We have different pictures. We made it.
Yeah. So the picture, Jordan, throw the picture up there for the
BetMGM
read.
We have the new ones are fine. I have no problem with the new one.
Yeah, the new one. By the way, this face, when you pull it up on the screen, this is the same face Eric made when he was hanging out with Luka Garza. That right there is the exact same face, mouth open wide, excited, just happy to be there. That is this is the Luka Garza pose as far as I'm concerned right here on the BetMGM read, which also, if you guys haven't signed up with BetMGM, so there's a chance if you guys are in a state that is legal sports betting, you have access to BetMGM, probably don't to Prize Picks, right? So it's different across different states. Some states have Prize Picks, some have BetMGM, but we've got a sign-up offer no matter where you want to play. If you're a Prize Picks and you sign up using our link, you get 1 free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. If you want to play at BetMGM and use our link to sign up, you're going to get 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. And also, you're going to get an insurance bet of up to $1,000 over BetMGM when you sign up. So just a little bit added bonus, but 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. This is the cheapest way to get access to all of the tools we have. As Eric, is Luka under the desk again? 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum, and look how happy it makes Eric when you sign up. Do the pose one more time. There you go. Eric does that when you guys sign up.
See, that one's better. The other one, not so much. Eric does that when you sign up. Oh, man. It's a very
sign up at BetMGM using our
link.
link. Make Eric do that and get 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. The next question we have is from Blinky. Can McDaniels be projected for 36 to 38 minutes tonight if Prince is out? I think it also depends if Austin Rivers is out.
Correct. That would be my answer. Look at you. You're sharp. I've taught you a thing or two in my day.
Yeah, definitely where I learned it from.
Yep, me.
You know what I've learned most from by the way, are you still banned on Twitter?
Yes, Greg, I'm still banned on Twitter. I can't get into my Twitter account because I said to Jesse that I hope TJ McConnell nukes the slate, and I got flagged as if it was violent.
Yeah, well, it's a bomb threat, first of all.
No, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard.
Yeah, so you threatened everybody on Twitter. You threatened to blow up the entire platform, take down everything. You're a hazard to society, so they removed you. I don't want to learn from you. Dangerous wanted criminal. They don't even give you, because I'm a goody two shoes.
That's what it is.
Boy.
Yeah.
I don't do anything that would ever stir the pot. I've never been suspended from Twitter. They don't give you any kind of heads up. They just boot you.
No, so I was supposed to get a 12-hour thing, and then I have to remove the tweets. But when I log in, it gives me something's gone wrong, technical issue, yada, yada, yada. And I would tweet in order to let it be known that, like, hey, I'm having an issue with this. Does anybody have a fix? But I can't tweet to anybody that I follow because I can't get on my Twitter. I just go into this purgatory, this waiting room, like in Deathly Hallows Part 2, where Harry's just sitting there waiting for the train that never shows up, and he's talking with Dumbledore, and he can't get himself through, and it's just a problem right now, Greg. It's just a problem.
And then Dementors get you.
Yeah. The Dementor's kiss coming at me.
Here's the good thing, though, is because I go to your Twitter account, it's not closed out. Like, it doesn't say this account is unavailable, which you see with accounts when they're actually banned. There's a chance that Elon Musk has just watched a couple of our shows and has been like, we're not doing this on Twitter anymore. Like, if he wants to do it on YouTube, cool, not on my platform. That's my best guess as to what happened.
Thanks, Greg. I'm so happy that you are my coworker and that we are friends and we have each other's back in the good times and the bad.
boss, but yeah. Super chat from Corey Jordan. Gary Trent Jr. or Tobias Harris on DraftKings?
So Gary Trent Jr. just did some absurd things the other night, and I did not enjoy it. That was pretty frustrating. I'm going to slightly go Gary Trent, though. I've got him. Yeah, I don't know why 3's the magic number. I have Simons and Gary Trent both for 3 fantasy points more than Tobias Harris, but there you are.
I'm not really playing either of them much. Just to be clear, the answer is Trent between the two, but neither of them are guys that I'm really getting to. Let's see. Is there somebody around that price point that we prefer? So I assume he needs a forward that is 6,600 or less, or maybe a small forward. Let's see if there's a small forward that I like more.
Let's take a look. Well, I don't know who I'm rostering at small forward because it's going to be a lot of Minnesota Timberwolves, and they're playing at the same time and in this game. And we could be punting with a ton of them, or we could be punting with none of them. We could just be playing the Kyle Anderson, Jaden McDaniels side of it. Which, by the way, I will say Kyle Anderson is going to come in way more popular because he played well yesterday. I had 28% of him. I also got murdered yesterday, so I'm not bragging in any way, shape, or form, but pretty sure Kyle Anderson is going to end up being more popular. People look at the box score still in the year of our Lord 2023. So Jaden McDaniels is still my priority. I talked about him quite a bit the last couple slates. I just think he goes undervalued pretty much every slate.
So here's going to be my answer. I know you gave us a 1v1, but I'm going to deviate a little bit. If it has to be one of those two, Corey, the answer is Gary Trent. Same. If not looking at the pricing, I think you can fit OG Anunoby into your lineup. I prefer OG Anunoby to Gary Trent today. Anunoby's a little bit cheaper on DraftKings. His ownership is about the same. I know that Trent's been better as of late. Before the entire season, Anunoby's been the much better fantasy producer. I prefer Anunoby. Does that make sense to you?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
OG Anunoby too. What is it? Oh yeah, he just gets an eternal amount of stocks every slate that I don't play him, and I don't play him, or I don't have him right now, so he's gonna nuke it. So definitely play him. Oh, I can't say nuke. Sorry.
Yeah, you got to stop that with the threats. No good.
So dumb. I'm so agitated by this.
Some more questions that we have coming into our Discord channel. This one is from Sotex. Question for Eric: what cologne does Luka Garza wear?
Bleu de Chanel.
What's that?
Bleu de Chanel.
Is that? I don't even know.
I don't know. It's a commercial that I've seen a couple times. You know what I'm talking about? The guy I think passed away who shot that commercial, by the way. He was a French actor. Bleu de Chanel. Google it. Pretty sure he passed away. Sad stuff.
Yeah, I am going to guess Sex Panther.
Was it 60% of the time it works every time?
Yes, that's the only cologne I could pull off the top of my head. It doesn't exist, but sex actually is that's probably like a gimmick type thing that they sell as merch now, right?
Smells like Bigfoot's dick. That's good.
Right, there's probably somebody that sells a Sex Panther cologne now.
Oh, for sure. It would be almost moronic not to, and if they haven't figured that out, then well, we're probably doomed anyway. So there you go.
Do you think they really made it smell like Bigfoot's dick?
That'd be hilarious. I don't know. Why don't you go ask him? So I burned you.
Bigfoot. Yeah, like he's just in the back somewhere.
Did you just turn and yell for the sake of the bit?
I don't know. We've never seen Bigfoot before. What if he just walked in and that's how we found him?
There was one show I did at my best friend's place up north, and he like walked in during the show and just like walked in from the back. He gave you and everybody thought I was gonna die.
He gave you food.
Give me food. He was just like, "Oh, I thought you needed food." I was like, "Dude, I'm literally doing a show." He's like, "Oh, I thought you were just talking to your coworkers or something."
You know what the best Bigfoot joke was? Mitch Hedberg. Have you ever heard his Bigfoot joke?
I have.
I think the problem is that Bigfoot is blurry. Like that's such a funny joke.
I went out to dinner and they were like, Anderson, party of four. Anderson, party of four. And they did not go to the window. What happened to the Andersons? And Johnson, search party of two.
I used to do drugs. I still do, but I used to also. I mean, Mitch Hedberg had just because they were so specific to his cadence and just his weird mind that nobody else could ever tell those jokes and kind of make them work. But he was. I think
he's from
really
Minneapolis. Funny. I think I can't remember, but I just loved that guy. I absolutely loved him.
Some more questions coming into our Discord chat. This one is from Big Dream $. Who are the smart pivots from Saban Lee and Naz Reid on FanDuel? Lineup construction be damned. I think this is a good exercise.
Okay.
Not saying you guys can't play these players, and I'm playing a ton of Naz Reid, playing a lot of Saban Lee, but they are also very popular. And let's do this for FanDuel and DraftKings. Who is our favorite pivot off of Saban Lee on DraftKings? Who's our favorite pivot off of Saban Lee on FanDuel? And then we'll do it for both sites. So starting with DraftKings, who is the player that you'd call the best pivot off of Saban Lee?
So it's not really a pivot because it's just a completely different price point, and it just kind of I don't even know if that's really because can I do it across multiple positions or not? Does it have to just be by the price point, or can it be somebody that isn't a guard?
You can answer it however you want.
Okay. I will go Drew Eubanks against Philadelphia. I think so again, this is just same exact price point, 3,200. It's a 4-game slate. If Nurkic gets in foul trouble, doesn't Drew Eubanks play more minutes? Is that just, you need a big out there. If you were to walk into 22, 24 minutes as a result of foul trouble for Nurk, that would be your direct beneficiary. He's 3,200. So for me, it's more of like, all right, there's at least a path for him working out. Whereas like, I don't see anybody else playable at 3,200 or below.
So just pivot large field tournaments, also in grossly different price points. But how about Dwayne Washington, who we've actually seen be a good fantasy producer who's on the court? And, we're not that far removed from Dwayne Washington being the same exact salary in the same exact scenario and being like 70% owned. And then people are like, oh, Dwayne Washington, this guy actually sucks. He always sucked. He just, for whatever reason, had a stretch where he scored a bunch of fantasy points. I don't think it's crazy to think there's some upside in Dwayne Washington with Chris Paul out again. There's basically no players who are capable of playing point guard available for the Suns. So in large field tournaments, I think make a case for Dwayne Washington as a pivot. That would apply for both DraftKings and FanDuel. I don't love him as a points per dollar play, but just in the nature of the question, does that make sense as an answer?
Yeah, so I was going to answer Dwayne Washington, and then I kind of thought, well, I'll give somebody at the exact same price point and answer it that way, in case that's kind of what they're looking for, is somebody that's at the exact same number. I can't think of anybody else that's 3,200. Chris Boucher's 100 more. Like, if you were to randomly, for whatever reason, spike minutes, we know he can be a good fantasy point per minute guy, but I think the only guy I can actually like make a case for at the same number is Drew Eubanks. But I was thinking about answering it with Dwayne Washington, but I thought, well, that's 1,800 apart in the event that he's not building lineups out that way. There you go. But would you rather play Dwayne Washington or Cameron Johnson?
Dwayne Washington, because Cameron Johnson, it's just really hard to imagine he is an upside when we know that he's on a minutes restriction.
I'm just worried that Dwayne Washington plays like 10 minutes today.
Could be.
Yeah. Cameron Johnson back. Don't really need him there.
Well, but Dwayne Washington's basically exclusively played point guard minutes.
Yeah.
So I don't think Cam Johnson coming back impacts Washington really.
Okay. Then you're definitely going to be going that side of it and like everything.
It's just going to be, does Dwayne Washington suck like he normally does, or does he hit a bunch of shots like he did those couple
the greatest trick the devil ever pulled was convincing people for a week that Dwayne Washington was good at basketball.
He pulled some other stunts too. The thing with the apple, that was tricky. That was tricky.
Slide bitch.
That was tricky. The sneaky lizard. And the other part of the question was, who is the best pivot off of Naz Reid? So for DraftKings and FanDuel, who would be looking at as the best pivot?
I don't have one. I can't even answer that question. Like, who's better than the guy who projects out way better than anybody else point per dollar on the slate? There's no pivot.
I mean, it's Luka Garza just from a standpoint of if Naz Reid gets hurt.
Yes.
Or if Naz Reid gets into foul trouble. I expect Luka Garza to be the next man out on the court. I know that Nathan Knight, at least in the second half, played ahead of Garza at one point. That's because Garza was also in foul trouble himself at that point. So I don't really think that's going to be an issue today. But just kind of by what happens if Naz Reid fails, it's hard to imagine Luka Garza wouldn't play well in a spot that Naz Reid fails. So I'm going to say Luka Garza just because of the correlation there.
Like it.
The next question we have is from Cream. Who would you use to get off of Andrew Wiggins on DraftKings? By the way, we're going to talk about the Warriors starting lineup in a second. Do you see the Warriors starters?
I did not.
All right.
Because I'm banned from Twitter.
Lineup, which we could actually tie into this question. So Cream asked us, who would we use to get off of Andrew Wiggins? The starting lineup today for the Warriors. Curry, Poole, Thompson, Wiggins, Draymond Green at center. This is the Warriors' best lineup. I love this.
Yeah, it's the death lineup, like their new version of death from the NBA Finals.
So I like this. I do like this squad that they're putting out there. I think it's really fun to watch as well. I know Jordan Poole's not good. He's had really poor numbers this year, particularly in the shooting department. He's shooting like 33% from three or something like that. But this is a five-man unit that really spaces the court. I think the Warriors are most effective when Draymond is playing the center minutes. But now with that in mind, the question is, who would we roster to get off of Andrew Wiggins? Like, how much Wiggins are you playing that you feel like you need to do something to get off of him? Like, this isn't somebody who's a core piece for me or anything.
I didn't have him earlier. I think he's somebody, well, his ownership's gone up as this show's going on. And so, I mean, I had like 4%, like nothing of Andrew Wiggins. And now he's even higher owned than he was before. He was around 15% last round. He's around 18.6. I would be surprised if I got to him now at that kind of a number.
And let's see. So the ownership.
There's going to be tons of Minnesota plays to get to at the small forward position. Like that's my issue with Andrew Wiggins is it's just using a spot in my lineups I don't want to use yet.
I mean, the other thing, like I get it having some exposure to Wiggins, but it's not like this is a guy who's, he's 12% owned on FanDuel. He's 19% on DraftKings. I just my follow-up question here to Kareem would be, how much exposure do you have to Wiggins? Do you feel like you need to get off him? Right? Because if you've built out 8 lineups, he's in 2 or 3 of them, cool. If he's in 100% of your lineups, like that just would be incorrect to me.
Yeah. Just figure something else out.
So the forwards I am getting to the most on DraftKings, Taurean Prince, OG Anunoby, Anthony Edwards, another one. I'm hoping that he comes in being lower owned. Power forward, Naz Reid, talked about him before. He's somebody who's pretty hard to get away from. But I mean, that's really priorities for me. I would say Taurean Prince, Anthony Edwards, Anunoby being another one that I think you could play there. Yeah, and by the way, Kareem just followed up and said he has him in 25% of his lineups. Fine. I like that. That's perfectly fine. You don't have to do anything to change 25% of Andrew Wiggins. Acceptable amount.
Correct.
The next question we have is from Hero. Our guy Hero says they sell Sex Panther. They do. He found a website that sells it. Interesting.
Google.
It's good to know. Good to know. Does it really smell like Bigfoot's dick? That is what I'm really curious about. Sotex wants to know Saban Lee for single entry. Yeah, I think you should be like Saban Lee in single entry. He's going to be really popular, but it makes sense.
Agreed. He's just look at the optimal percentage. This is where the boom bust tool just comes in handy. You go to the boom bust tool. His ownership and optimal percentage are just off the charts. Same thing with Naz Reid. You just play both of them. And I will say, based off of yesterday, I was surprised to see Naz at like 62, 63% in pretty much every tournament that I was in yesterday. I think he should have been higher owned. I mean, this is a 4-game slate, a better spot to get to him. I do expect the ownership to come up a little bit from that. It's gone down $200. A lot of people building with optimizers now, but like Saban Lee isn't far behind. 2/3 of the time he works out optimal in this slate. Optimal. That's not even counting the number of times that he'll still show up in a winning lineup, putting up 18 at 3,200. So like, play Saban Lee.
Now, I want to ask you about this Warriors starting lineup. I was not expecting. I thought they'd be doing the normal lineup. Looney starting, Poole off the bench. A betting angle to this, by the way. If Jordan Poole is going to keep starting, he's dead for 6 man of the year. Like, we're just seeing 6 men of the year candidates drop off because they're starting too many games.
Clarkson, everybody.
What was that?
I'm just thinking of like all the guys. Clarkson's been starting for like a month now.
Clarkson started all year, so he's dead. Christian Wood was one of the favorites. He's dead at this point. I think with Jordan Poole moving into the starting lineup, I don't mind taking a shot at Malcolm Brogdon for 6 man of the year, because another guy too. The overwhelming betting favorite, which I don't agree with, and I understand why he's the favorite. I don't agree with the number though. Like Russell Westbrook's like -175 to win 6 man of the year. There's a fairly decent chance that he gets moved at some point this season, and then there's a team that 1 might start Russell Westbrook, or 2 might not even have him play with a team that might send him home. If Poole is going to stick in the starting lineup, I say go bet Malcolm Brogdon for 6 man of the year. I think he might be just like the last man alive at the end of the year if it comes to voting.
It's funny. Yeah.
Let me look at what the odds are.
Last man standing kind of thing.
But I mean, just kind of by default, because so many of the players that have been favorites over the course of the year, Here we go. All right. So the current 6th man of the year, you've got Russell Westbrook minus money to win the award. Then it's Jordan Poole, who it looks like he's just going to be starting now. Then you've got Malcolm Brogdon. Then the next guy is Norman Powell and Benedict Mathurin, who are just not nearly as good as Brogdon. And at this point, I don't think there's any threat of Brogdon starting for the Celtics. So I think this news kind of makes Brogdon make sense as 6th man of the year bet. And once again, BetMGM, if you guys want to go check out the odds of over there, you want to bet Malcolm Brogdon for 6th man of the year, sign up using our link. Throw some money on Malcolm Brogdon, and you get yourself 2 free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. The next question we have in the Discord channel, and then also check to see if we have any questions that have come. Oh, I forgot to, my bad. I forgot to follow up the other part. Are you going to do anything with this Warriors starting lineup? Is this going to change your lineups in any way?
Yeah, I might get a little bit of Jordan Poole. I thought he was a pretty terrible play before, but I think getting to a little bit of him, he was like at 1.4%. I can't imagine people are going to go out of their way to jam him. He's 7,800. We saw 37 minutes in that start. Last time there was no Klay Thompson, so that's a different situation, but still, like, I like this. These are their 5 best players. Play your 5 best players more. That makes sense, especially when Draymond has proven he can play small ball 5. I'm just happy, I'm just happy to see this team back to full strength. The NBA is more interesting when Golden State's healthy. Like, I think that's just kind of what it is.
Draymond Green is $6,000 on DraftKings, $6,600 on FanDuel. I like that as an option. Draymond's much more effective as a center than he is as a power forward. There's more rebounding opportunities for him. The other thing to consider too, he's not a high usage guy. This doesn't impact his scoring at all. Kind of helps his assists potentially. I think we'll see a lot of the ball running through Draymond Green, more assist opportunities, more rebound opportunities. I think Draymond goes from a guy who is an afterthought to me to somebody I actually want to get some exposure to now.
Look at that. I don't completely hate it. My major issue with him is he's power forward only on DK, and I don't know. It is a 4-game slate. I don't completely hate it, but I'm not running out of my way to like adjust everything that I'm doing here on my end to get more.
Let's see. I'm going to try running another set of lineups. This is a really difficult thing to project for. I'm just going to give Draymond the thumbs up in Fantasy Cruncher.
Is there any other? So, I mean, I had some shares that I was getting to of Looney. Are we going to touch Looney at all now?
No.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. I'm just taking him out of my pool.
Yeah, I think Looney is a tough sell now.
Correct. I'm with you.
The other thing, too, that I like getting some exposure to with Draymond is, once again, a 4-game slate. If Taurean Prince gets ruled out, I want to have at least some of Draymond as being somebody who, because right now there are power forwards that we like. Naz Reid also has exposure to other positions, but I mean, Kyle Anderson is 5,600 on DraftKings. Draymond Green is 6,000. Kyle Anderson is going to be infinitely more popular. Should the expectation for Kyle Anderson really be that much higher than Draymond Green?
It's a good point, but for me, it's just being able to react to everything, and I feel like I just kind of want to have those lineups going towards Minnesota no matter what, even if it's not Kyle Anderson having the lineup spots. Again, I do expect Kyle Anderson to probably end up being more popular than we have here. It's just thinking about yesterday. And when somebody's played awesome back-to-back games, put up like slate winning performances back-to-back games, people don't overlook that stuff anymore. So it's going to be a very popular piece. I'm getting to a lot of Jaden McDaniels. I will, regardless of how that news pans out, but I'm with you now where I think I want to get to a little bit more Draymond Green. I think you sold me on it.
Yeah, I'm just running lineups right now, and it looks like I'm going to have somewhere between 20 to 30% of Draymond Green. And it was sub 10% before. I just think he's somebody at low ownership worth taking a shot. I'm not going crazy, but I'll certainly be overweight to the field. Let's hit on some more of the super chats and questions we've gotten in the Discord. This one is from... Let me just scroll back to make sure there wasn't one that I missed. All right, so here we go. The Maharishi, VP Punch Face VIP. RIP Mitch Hedberg, my favorite stand-up of all time. So go shout out to Mitch Hedberg, who Eric and I were reminiscing about some of our favorite Mitch Hedberg jokes before.
Love him.
Hippopotamus is back. I've seen Bigfoot. The problem is that no one is looking for him in the sub-Saharan. I let him ride my back once for some beef jerky.
It's a lot to process.
Back in the day, Bigfoot used to do those commercials. Last I saw him as well.
I hit the ball at Bigfoot's fat foot. I'm afraid he's right. Take a shot, Mr. Gilmore.
Happy this is this back-to-back shows that Adam Sandler and Happy Gilmore have come up in?
It shouldn't be surprising. You know me by now.
The next super chat is from the Claw 28. Is Robert Williams a bad play on DraftKings?
It's not bad. I'm just not going to play him.
Actually, I like Robert Williams quite a bit.
I don't.
His minutes are final. So he's starting and the minutes are finally trending up. So like Robert Williams, fair to say he's about the same. We should consider him about the same now as he was last year.
Close. Yeah, close. I still think he's going to have bubble wrap on him from time to time. This would be probably a game where you could see that unleashed a little bit if he gets out there and starts making a difference. But yeah, I'm just looking at this Minnesota spot and it's kind of controlling everything I do. We still don't have news there. We still don't have news.
So here's why I am pro Robert Williams today. His minutes the last couple of games, 27 minutes, 27 minutes, 29 minutes. And I think you kind of brought up on something important too, Eric. If there was any regular season spot that you would really start to extend Robert Williams, it would be in a game where, we're getting a rematch of the NBA Finals, but something else as well. Do you remember how many minutes per game Robert Williams played last year?
Yeah, he was playing like mid-30s last year.
Nope, 29.
Oh, I'm saying NBA Finals. What did he play in the NBA Finals?
Oh, okay.
I thought that's what you were talking about.
But NBA Finals, his knee was kind of fucked up at that point also.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
I'm more saying, so I think however you evaluated Robert Williams and his price point in the regular season last year is about how you should be evaluating him now. He played 29 minutes per game in the regular season last year. The last 3 games, he played 27, 27, and 29 minutes. And then if you go back to last year, he was a guy who was pretty regularly priced in the high 6K to low 7K type range when he was starting getting these minutes. So I just think he's a misprice. Like I think we're not very far away from being $1,000 to $1,500 more expensive.
Damn it, Greg, you're talking me into all these guys. Now I'm getting more Draymond Green. I'm going to get to more Robert Williams in the next 8 minutes. Appreciate you.
Yeah. No, it's good because now if your lineup suck, you just blame me.
Yeah. Terry Flawboy, 420. Eric doesn't like him. Then I'm all in. Well, joke's on you. I'm playing him now. So there you are.
The Claw has another question.
Idiot.
He wants to know Cam Johnson or Dwayne Washington for DK. If it has to be one of the two, Dwayne Washington.
Correct.
Next question is from DK24. Appreciate the super chats, guys. Also, if you haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Is Fred VanVleet a good play today, or would he go elsewhere in single entry?
I'm staring at him as we speak right now, trying to decide what I want to do. He's at 18%, which I think is too low. I'm going to be over the field, but on my last run, I was getting like north of 38% of him. I think that's too much. I'm trying to temper it down a little bit. But what happens is when I upload, I have my little spot where I basically take our ownership projections, run some stuff and kind of spits out some really good high leverage players. I mean, a lot of it is the boom bust tool. You can kind of easily do that if you're building out by hand. But I mean, Fred VanVleet, I just think there's a lot of leverage to get to. My thing is that there could also be tons of value on Minnesota, and I can kind of just have a complementary piece there. I'm not getting to as much Toronto as I would like at the moment. Pascal Siakam's coming along for the ride. Scotty Barnes a little bit too. And Precious Achiuwa has just been a dude that if you're building with an optimizer is going to show up a lot for you at 3,700 on DK. I just like a lot of different guards. Like I'm getting to more Steph Curry where I can spend up. I'm spending a lot. And also 7 minutes. We still don't have Anthony Edwards clarification and Taurean Prince clarification. That is so gigantic that I think Steph Curry probably comes in a little bit under-owned. He's sub 10% right now. As you said, just for the Robert Williams, I'll go back to it. If you're going to give Steph Curry some extended run to maybe play 40 here, he played 38 against Washington with a 42% usage rate. Jordan Poole's starting next to him. Not ideal, but now the assist rate could possibly have time to come up a little bit playing alongside him. But Steph Curry sub 10% on a 4-game slate seems fun now that he's back to full minutes.
Yeah, I think you could definitely make a case for Curry in large field tournaments, particularly at his ownership. One thing here's what changed for me with the starting lineup for the Warriors. I got to more of Draymond Green and everybody else looked worse. Yeah, just that like Jordan Poole is a high usage guy. Jordan Poole individually looks better, but he's already pretty expensive now. So not somebody I'm really dying to get to, but it takes away a little bit from guys like Steph Curry, takes away from, Klay Thompson, takes away from Andrew Wiggins, with Jordan Poole being in that starting lineup, just another really high usage guy. So I think that's a downgrade to everybody that Warriors starting lineup, with the exception being Draymond Green. The next super chat is from Corey Shea. Top 5 single entry payups on DraftKings. How many dudes are you paying up for in your lineups? There's only 4 games on the entire slate. But let's go through. Of the expensive players, what is your priority in rostering them, Eric?
For who?
He wants to know who our top 5 spend ups are for single entry.
Joel Embiid's number 1 by a landslide for me. Jason Tatum and Steph Curry kind of tied, just because I think they're going to come in under-owned based on this Minnesota news going there. Kyrie Irving is 4 for me on DK, and Pascal Siakam 5.
Embiid, Harden, Edwards for me. I mean, especially if Edwards is going to be questionable, which now it appears is going to be heading into lock, his ownership just might end up being too low. So Edwards is somebody who I'm trying to prioritize getting to in lineups right now, just because that news hasn't come out. And then Tatum and Kyrie. That'll be my 5. Obviously, you can't fit all those guys in the same lineup, but I don't know exactly what meant by pay up. So that's the order that I'm prioritizing the pay up guys in. Some more questions in our Discord channel. The next one is from Miami High Life. Any Precious tonight on DraftKings, and are there any good cheap pivots from them? Yes, I do like getting to Precious Achiuwa. I also bet him for over 5.5 rebounds earlier in the day, and I think that he makes sense on DraftKings as a cheap option. I don't really know that I have a direct pivot off of him. Like there isn't a guy like before. I said if Naz Reid fails, you could see extended run from Luka Garza. Like there is no equivalent of that to Naz Reid. I mean to Precious Achiuwa. So I'm going to say no direct pivots, but I do like him in tournaments.
Yes, same. He was a guy I kind of listed off all my Toronto guys already.
Make sure we didn't miss any super chats. Scrolling through to make sure we hit on all of those. By the way, I hope that answered your question, Corey. Kind of hard to identify 5 pay up options to get to in a single entry lineup. And
high exposures just look so weird when you have guys like 194%, and then it just goes across the board. It is so wild.
So who are the players that you have the most exposure to right now? You want to do it for DraftKings and I'll do it for FanDuel?
Sure. Can I get my lineups up? Give me like 1 minute.
Yeah.
Give me 1 minute to just upload them, and then we can play that game.
Here's what we'll do. While you're uploading that, my lineups are all good to go. We've got them uploaded.
I just want to double check. We still don't have Minnesota news, right?
Still no Minnesota news.
Jeez. All right. I'm just gonna play more Steph and more Jason Tatum, and I gotta make sure I get a little bit of that dream.
What we do have, by the way, I should have meant Austin Rivers is out, but he's not the important one. We don't have Taurean Prince, and we don't have Anthony Edwards. News. We don't know whether those guys are in or not. Still waiting on that. So Eric and I are going to be here for the next half hour. Slate locks in 2 minutes. We're going to be sticking around and breaking down the slate. And we're probably going to get that Edwards, Taurean Prince news in the 30-minute post-lock show. So stick around for that, guys. And then also, we're looking at some of our favorite bets. We're going to be looking at prize picks. We're going to be looking at NBA Bet Pro. So lots of stuff that we're going to be breaking down. As for my most rostered players, position by position on FanDuel, I've got at point guard, Saben Lee and Kyrie Irving. Shooting guard, Marcus Smart and Anthony Edwards. Small forward, Anthony Edwards, Jaylen Brown, OG Anunoby. Power forward, Robert Williams, his power forward eligibility over on FanDuel. And Al Horford, another one that I like with power forward eligibility. And Draymond Green also popping up in lineups for me. And then center, Naz Reid for me on FanDuel. Joel Embiid, my second favorite option. We're able to get your lineups uploaded. If not, I'll just rattle them off for DraftKings for me as well.
Yeah, you rattle them off, and then I'll follow up. I'll rattle them off after you. I just need to go.
Point guard for me on DraftKings, Saben Lee and James Harden. Shooting guard, Anthony Edwards and OG Anunoby. Small forward is also Anthony Edwards and OG Anunoby. And then also we've got Taurean Prince, another option there. Power forward for me, Naz Reid, Draymond Green. Center, Naz Reid, Robert Williams, Precious Achiuwa, Joel Embiid. Naz Reid clearly the priority there, and then those other guys just kind of spread out a little bit behind him.
Man, it was weird. I was locked in today. I was trying to get everything updated the way I wanted it to. I'm pretty happy with what we got. Point guard, Saben Lee, Steph Curry, Simons right now, which ended up being a weird thing. I don't know how that changed. but I'm going to fix that when we get Minnesota news. We've got the extra half hour. Damian Lee, Simons at shooting guard as well. Marcus Smart ended up showing up a little bit more than I expected for me as well, but just 20%, pretty flat across shooting guard. Damian Lee at small forward, Jaden McDaniels, Taurean Prince kind of up there as well. I expect that a lot of the Lee is going to disappear on my next run. Naz Reid 100%, Jaden McDaniels, Draymond Green, and at center, Naz, Precious, Embiid, both crazy high for me.
Shane Daly says we missed the super chat. I don't have it in my feed though. Like I searched it. It's not showing up anywhere. So don't leave another super chat. Just ask the question. I'll try to answer it really quick. Or Jordan, if you could find it, message it to me. But I did a search of the YouTube chat feed and Shane Daly's super chat wasn't showing up for me. He's been shadow banned like Eric on Twitter.
Oh my God. I don't wish that upon my worst enemy. Actually, I wish it upon Greg. That's it.
Fair enough. And by the way, Shane, I apologize. I don't know why it isn't showing up for me anywhere. Anthony Edwards available to play. Just in time, 30 seconds after lock.
Son of a biscuit.
Taurean Prince available to play. There we go.
Okay.
Edwards and Prince is in. We got both of them.
Well, it's kind of the worst situation of it for news, but you know.
I mean, I'm happy with it because I have exposure to Edwards and Prince.
Yeah. I mean, I do too, but it's just like, I don't want, I guess it doesn't really matter. It doesn't really matter.
And by the way, for me, Austin Rivers being out with these two guys being in doesn't really change anything.
Agreed. Doesn't change anything. That's kind of what I'm getting at, is that I would have liked to have some more value show up as a result of it, because I just played two studs a lot more than I generally would in the first game to try to be like, all right, if I can capture some upside on the back end. But again, it's a 4-game slate. I have a little bit more Steph and Tatum than I otherwise would have. Who cares?
Oh, okay, so nice. We got Shane Daly's super chat, and this is good. This is good because it's actually two players who were not in the first game of the slate, so we're still able to answer this and help him out. He wants to know, first of all, Elon hates name drops too, and then he asks Harden or Kyrie. I have, well, it depends on what site. A DraftKings for me, I ended up with more Harden. FanDuel would be Kyrie. Do you have a preference between the two?
The first one.
I mean, it's Harden versus Kyrie.
Yeah, Harden.
Okay.
No, Kyrie for me. Kyrie, I have 30%. So Kyrie. Harden, I have 15 right now. I got to fix
starting lineup for the Wolves is in nothing massively surprising here. Russell, Edwards, McDaniels, Anderson, Reed. Anything that you're changing with the Timberwolves based on the news that Edwards and Prince are in?
Yeah, I think the main thing is I'm tempering Kyle Anderson, Jaden McDaniels exposure. I'm just going to say this again. I think Kyle Anderson comes in over owned today. I am very aware. It's just something that I expect. So I'm going to save the 800. I'm going to try to make Jaden McDaniels a thing. Godspeed to myself.
Totally makes sense to me. Is there anybody that we could look at as like a crazy punt just because that Austin Rivers is out, or just not enough minutes that should be changing?
Yeah, again, Wendell Moore would have been interesting if you had no Anthony Edwards. Taurean Prince would have been interesting there too. Taurean Prince being in kind of eats up a lot of those minutes that might have otherwise gone there. Yeah, there's really nothing that is revelatory for me here.
Ooh, revelatory. Good vocab word.
Jalen
Ready to talk some prize picks?
Yeah, my favorite.
Let's see if any other questions came into Discord pertaining to the news that we just got. Nothing yet. If you guys have questions, throw those in. So if you would do us the favor, Mr. Jordan Klein, pull up NBA Bet Pro on the screen, which if you guys haven't checked out NBA Bet Pro yet, brand new tool we have over at Stokastic.com. And no matter where you guys are playing player props, we've got covered over at Bet Pro, because whether it's at No House Advantage, Prize Picks, BetMGM, FanDuel, DraftKings, we got all of those loaded into Bet Pro. So you could go to them and find out whatever our best projected EV props are for each of those sites. We're going to look through Prize Picks using Bet Pro. Once again, 1 week free trial by clicking on the link below. No risk to you at all. And try to find some of our favorite plays from the day. Off the top of your head, Eric, is there anything that you know that you did like from Prize Picks coming into the day that's still up there?
Yeah. So for me, the fantasy scores have been very, very low on a number of guys. And Jaden McDaniels was the first guy off the bat for me. 22.5 is a very low number. You're basically looking at FanDuel scoring for him there. I have him projected north of 25. And for whatever reason, these numbers are just like begging you to take overs over there. It's something that I've kind of routinely been taking on Prize Picks in the fantasy score. That's kind of like the first section I go to every day. And then Naz Reid as well. He's sitting at 31.5. That's a broken number. Yesterday, foul trouble, everything else considered. He's projected for north of 35 on DK for me. I'm assuming on FanDuel with the extra bump for stocks blocks. Yeah, Naz Reid can be a knockdown shooter, so maybe a little bit of a decline in projection. But I'm assuming on FanDuel, he's going to be projected higher because of the stocks. Yeah, we've got him at 34. So almost identical, 34. Again, 2.5 fantasy point discrepancy. Give me that on Naz Reid.
I love it. I think that makes a whole lot of sense. And do you remember off the top of your head, because I don't have access to Prize Picks in New Jersey, but I knew you play on it pretty frequently.
Yes.
What was the over-under for Prize Picks on the fantasy score for Naz Reid yesterday? Do you recall?
Yeah, 32.
I thought it would have been quite a bit higher. But but then again,
no, it was it was 32.5 is what it was. 32.5. It's 31.5 today.
Gotcha. Although with that said, when was I forget the timing of when Gobert was ruled out yesterday. What time was he ruled out? Was it like a line that was kind of stale and not updated enough?
I'll pull it up on my cards from yesterday.
While we're doing that, we got a question in our Discord channel. This is from MJazz24. He said, are we expecting Saben Lee to start tonight? I am not. I'm expecting Dwayne Washington to start. I think the starting five for Phoenix will be Dwayne Washington, Mikal Bridges, Torrey Craig, Cam Johnson, and DeAndre Ayton. Cam Johnson playing limited minutes. I think Saben Lee and Dwayne Washington are probably going to split the point guard minutes, although there's a chance that they also share the court for a decent amount together. So to answer MJazz's questions, I am expecting Saben Lee to come off the bench, and I still like him as an option today anyway. Are you expecting Saben Lee to start?
No. I don't care though.
Yeah, same page as far as I'm concerned. Also, the reason why I thought before we're talking about pivots, I thought Dwayne Washington's a viable pivot in large field tournaments off of Saben Lee, because if Washington has one of these ceiling games that we've seen from him on occasion, what ends up happening? He plays extended minutes, and that just means less minutes available for Saben Lee. So that's why I view Dwayne Washington in large field tournaments as a viable pivot. But I do think that Saben Lee, him and Naz Reid are pretty clearly the two best points per dollar options on the slate. Correct?
Agreed. Yep. By a landslide, everybody.
The next question is from K Mason BX on DK. OG, Simons, or Maxey for single entry?
OG, Simons, or Maxey?
Simons for me.
Simons. Yeah, he's the best projected. We keep going back to him. It's just the tag has started to adjust, and eventually you're going to have the Simons went for 55 blow up shooting special, and why not take that shot at 6,300 for him? The usage has been routinely low 20s now with Damian Lillard back, but who cares? Now he has an opportunity. He's still a 0.95 DraftKings point per minute guy under all situations. That's too low for him right now. 21% ownership. I want more than that.
Couple of quick starts. So this is a couple nights in a row now where we've done the post-lock show and immediately had a game start. So we had an on-time start time for the Celtics-Warriors rematch. The Celtics are up 11-9, 4 minutes into the first quarter. Andrew Wiggins has 3 points, 2 rebounds, and an assist. Jordan Poole, 3 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists for Jordan Poole right out of the gate for the Celtics. The leading scorer in the game is actually Marcus Smart right now. He has 5 points. Jason Tatum filling up the stat sheet in multiple ways. 2 points, 3 boards, an assist, and a steal for Jason Tatum, who is starting to fall behind in the MVP race. If you look at the recent numbers, do you know what the odds are on Jokic to an MVP right now, Eric?
I'm guessing it moved inside of plus 200 at this point.
He is, depending on what book.
Minus 150.
I mean, minus 150 be crazy. He's even money, plus 100 to win MVP.
I was just saying, I thought it would be something crazy. Plus 100, when you think about every player in the NBA, is still pretty crazy.
It's exactly 50-50. Just helping people out with some math. I was I was trying to educate somebody what the greater than sign meant on Twitter earlier. He thought it was you wouldn't know this because you're not on Twitter anymore. But there's a lot of people who are very stupid on that platform. And there was this guy who thought the greater than sign meant an arrow. And we argued about it for a little bit, and then he blocked me. So there we go. I'm very convinced the greater than sign means greater than. He thinks it means arrow, and it means you're pointing to something.
I'm starting to think my life is more positive EV without Twitter in it.
Probably you've tried to quit it multiple times, and it never sticks.
It took literally rehab, and Elon Musk gave me Twitter rehab over saying that TJ McConnell was going to nuke a slate, as if he was going to actually legitimately nuke a slate. Like
Are you sure
like
you
a
didn't
building.
misspell it and say state?
No. Slate. Find the exact.
You're dangerous. So the MVP odds right now, we've got Nikola Jokic is the favorite, even money plus 100. And then we've got Luka Doncic plus 420, Tatum plus 700, Embiid plus 800, and Giannis is now 10-1. It's been a weird down year for Giannis. His efficiency number is way worse. Now I know individually he's had some big games, but he's also missed some time due to injury. So, I mean, we're looking at Nikola Jokic, even money, 50-50 shot to be a 3-time MVP, and people absolutely losing their shits on Twitter about it, which Eric won't be able to see, but I'm looking forward to it. Super chat from Clips. Siakam and Simons or Embiid and Washington on DK?
Embiid and Washington. Siakam Simons for sure.
Yeah, I'm going Embiid and Washington.
Oh, you're getting contrarian. Look at you, you little contrarian.
I mean, Embiid is not exactly contrarian.
Oh, yeah. But Siakam Simons is definitely the better side of that because Dwayne Washington, you can take shots on him, but I'm not going to tell you to do that in your one lineup that you gave us.
I'm also just not really playing Siakam very much today. And I am Embiid. I'm not playing a lot of Dwayne Washington, but I think there's a case for him in large field tournaments. And then I like Anthony Simons. But of those 4 players, Embiid is the one I like the most by far.
I agree. But not by by far. By far, I'm with you.
Corey Shea. Josh Hat. He spelled it with an A. So I thought that was how it was supposed to be said. Josh Hat, or by the way, he spelled all these names out. He spelled all of these names egregiously terrible. He spelled Josh Hart Jash, and then McDaniels spelled Mcadaniels. So McDaniels or Josh Hat, which side do you have?
McDaniels.
Let's see, who did I end up with? Did I end up with more of?
Do you have like a good New Jersey accent, like the Jersey Shore thing? That's kind of what you were pawning off to be there.
No, that's more Boston. Josh Hat.
Yeah, I guess it would be.
I'm just reading how he wrote it though.
Cabsy, they got a little bit of that.
I mean, I definitely have some sort of a New York, New Jersey type accent. We've gone over some of the words we say, like tournament. You say tournament. I say
tournament. That's so wild to me.
Coffee.
Amir.
What do you say? Coffee, or how do you say water?
Water.
My answer to the question, by the way, he had asked, so this was McDaniels or Josh Hat, and that is Hart for me.
Yeah,
it would have been McDaniels if Edwards and or Prince was ruled out, but they weren't.
Would have been McDaniels if I wanted a quarter pounder with cheese. But let's go.
Exactly. Yes. Another. Nobody's quicker. Nobody's quicker. Is that all of the... Oh, nope. We've got one here from Jay. Need help building Showdown versus the Nets. Thanks. All right. So he's building Showdown for Nets Suns. Let me run a crunch for that because I have not run crunches for that game. And I'll do it right now. And then I'll tell you what ends up popping up for me. As for questions in the Discord, because I think we had some of those come in. Teely wanted to know who our favorite plays were on the slate. We did go through all of them. Nothing has really changed for me. Has anything changed for you in terms of the players you're getting the most exposure to?
No. I'm just drastically cheering for Jaden McDaniels over Kyle Anderson tonight. I'm just making that assumption.
The early results now. So, by the way, Draymond Green I would like some other stats from him. He's up to 5 rebounds in 7 minutes. Nothing else on the board yet, but at least we've got the rebounds there. As for other players, this game has actually become really low scoring. No real standout performances from the Warriors. Now Poole's up to 5 points, 2 rebounds, and 2 assists.
Just came off the floor now too.
But
Looney, and
considering what his price point is, it's not exactly, like smashing or anything. Al Horford is up to 8 points and 5 rebounds. So Horford, overall best player in this game so far. Can't say I really foresaw that.
No, don't think many people did. If this were the NBA Finals where we're all forced into showdown and showdown only, we would all be like, gosh darn it, mother effer, crap, balls, all that stuff.
Yeah, it's exactly what we would be saying. I like how you talked like a South Park character just there. Just stringing naughty words together. Horford was one of my most rostered power forwards on FanDuel, but hardly got to him on the DK slate.
Yeah, I have probably none. No, that's Kendrick. I forgot.
Follow up from MJazz just saying
one share,
fellas.
One share, and of course, why wouldn't my 4% of Jaylen Brown show up in that lineup? Why wouldn't it? Perfect.
Do you have anything else you like for prize picks outside of Naz Reid?
I like game stacking the fantasy score. So I've been talking about this, and I'm pretty convinced that this is going to be a thing that I do going forward because I've done some research into it. And I'm trying my best to figure out the best path of how to like back test this going forward. I think it's probably just simulating or going through the box score of other games. But if you take a random basketball game where there's pending injury news, so this would have applied a lot more if you had no Anthony Edwards and you were able to just blindly bet Jaden McDaniels, D'Angelo Russell, all of those guys. But the average NBA game goes to overtime just a little. It's a hair over 6%. It's like 6.4% of the time an NBA game goes to overtime. They're giving you 25x on a 6 flex player. And if the news makes it an advantageous play, I'm not a huge parlay guy in any kind of capacity, but this is basically what you're doing. You're kind of putting together your SGP version over on Prize Picks. And I feel as though kind of going 3-3 with the major components of guys who are undervalued, that being for Prize Picks purposes, I think Scotty Barnes, Gary Trent, Pascal Siakam being the 3. You could throw Fred VanVleet. I wouldn't have any issue there. But Jaden McDaniels, Kyle Anderson, and the Naz Reid side are all very, very low from a fantasy score perspective. I got to think if you run into overtime a majority of the time, you're just getting automatic overs from those guys in that kind of a capacity. And that doesn't count the number of times that you get 4 out of 5 or 4 out of 6 or 5 out of 6. And the 5 out of 6 pays out 2x. I think over a long period of time, you might be better off just kind of going 3-3 and stacking those up for like, $5, $10 a piece and hoping you run into some of those overtime spots. Because over the course of 25 basketball games, you're just going to run into spots where overtime is going to happen. And it's almost impossible to imagine a scenario on Toronto where guys play 40 minutes a night, on Minnesota where these guys are already advantageous fantasy score things, where that's not a positive EV thing to do.
Yeah, and also to what you said before, I'm not a big fan of parlays. The way the Prize Picks works, you have to parlay. It's just kind of the nature of how their system works. If you're going to parlay some of these players together, which we are going to do at Prize Picks, it makes sense to find ways to correlate them. You know who did this the best? Here's one of the sharpest things Eric's ever found. Baseball over at Prize Picks.
Buddy.
Eric found out that you could, what was it? It was the
you could correlate home run, the trio of home runs with the hit or the fantasy score. Yeah, you could correlate the two. And so there would be days where you would have Aaron Judge plus 150 that would be existing over at BetMGM, at DraftKings, wherever else. And that's a ridiculous number to lay on somebody hitting a home run. But on Prize Picks, you're able to take the trio of Aaron Judge, Gleyber Torres, and Giancarlo Stanton, one of the 3. And then you could take the over on 9.5 fantasy score for Aaron Judge, and you're getting paid 2-1 on top of that. So like it has a better payout. You had to play something else with it too. So I would take 2 home run props and I would just combine them, pays out 10x. And when it pays out 10x, the average that you're running into for a Judge, and it was Paul Goldschmidt that I did a lot against lefties as well last year, the payout was like plus 650 or plus 700. I did the math for EMAC and a couple of other people in the premium Discord one time, but like it was absolute smash fest last year. Can't wait. Hopefully they still have it available for this year too.
Yeah, and we're going to be covering more prize pick stuff as we get into it. I know Eric does a lot of prize pick stuff for baseball, and just something to keep an eye out for. But the bigger point here is if you guys are going to be placing bets where there's single game parlays or you just want them to be correlated. And if this is a way that we could correlate them, and I think Eric made a really good point there. So I want to make sure that when Eric says something smart, we've really highlighted around here.
Because it doesn't happen often, baby.
Well, it doesn't on Twitter anymore.
I hate you so much. Yeah.
Nothing smart is said on Twitter, though.
Very true. Again, I think my life is pretty positive. What was that, dude? He's laying on his back. What are you doing, dude? Weird puppy today. Weird puppy.
Is he still not feeling well?
He's feeling a little better here. But yeah, I think he just misses mom. Mom's been gone the last 3 days. Just me hanging with the pup, living the life.
Is he tired of you?
It's got to be. Would you be? I think so.
So the answer to that, I know the audience would like to say yes, but the reality is these shows finish and Eric and I will often sit on here for hours shooting the shit afterwards. So not really.
That's fair. Hey, buddy, what's
Spent
up?
A lot of time together.
Now he's up. See, now he's awake.
If you and your wife are both home, who is he more apt to follow around the house?
Oh, me, 100%. He's obsessed.
Okay.
Hey, bud, you want to say hi to everybody quick? You want to say hi? What's going on? Come here. Oh, there he is. Look at that head.
Oh, here he comes. Look at Duke. I like he gave us a blue steal right there. Did you catch that?
He did.
Did you see that? Yeah. He gave us the blue. Jordan, did you see that? That was definitely a blue steal. Do it again, Duke.
Buddy.
Blue steal.
Duke. Hang on. Look at this. You want to look over here? Oh. He just
did it. I mean, the first time he did it unprompted, it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, he is gigantic now. 115 pounds.
He looks like a bear from this angle.
He's a bear. He's such a good dog, though. Hey, buddy. All right. I got 9 more minutes, and then we'll go for a walk, okay? There you go.
And down he goes.
And down. He's so quiet on streams now, too. It's incredible. I'm really proud of this guy.
He knows.
He knows.
Oh. Is he done growing now?
No, he's got another 10 pounds.
Oh, my God.
Just a monster.
How big are his shits?
It's gargantuan. It's not normal. It's not normal. Somebody just said bite him. Fuck you, Paul C. How about that? You jackass. He would never. He's a perfect, sweet gentleman. Duke is a tank. Yeah, he's a monster now. Absolute monster. Remember when I brought him on stream the first time and I could hold him like this? Yeah. A long time ago. Jordan's like, Jordan gave me a nostalgic look there. He's like, oh, that was fun. That was fun.
And it wasn't even that long ago.
Yeah, it was a year ago. We got him literally January 29th.
Did it go that fast?
Yeah, it was a fast year. Fast year, except for him, it's just a unit. Absolute unit.
All right, no more questions. Has anything else happened in this basketball game? So we are towards the tail end of the first quarter. Not a lot of scoring going on here. 21-19. Draymond Green. This is going to be a little annoying to me because I was looking at Draymond Green. I get more exposure to him. I really like the increased rebounding opportunities he gets starting at center. And then he goes out and does nothing but rebound the ball. He has
18 rebounds, 0 points incoming. That would be awesome.
Six rebounds and no other stats for Draymond Green.
How sick was that 10-10-10 Ben Simmons game the other night? I still can't get over that actually happened.
Well, he had like 11 assists, didn't he? Or was it exactly?
Yeah, he had 11. The rebound, if you were watching it, it should have just been an offensive foul. And then they let him get the rebound. And then he had the offensive foul like 3 seconds later. It was incredible.
And then afterwards, he pointed at the screen, looked right at you.
Cleveland, this one's for you.
Did it for you. By the way, getting back to Jay's super chat, because I've been crunching lineups in the background and making sure that I had a thorough answer for you by the time I was done. So Jay lets us a super chat. He wanted to know who the top plays were in the showdown contest between the Suns and the Nets. And we also had some other super chats coming that I'm going to answer. These are the players I got to the most. In the captain spot, Kyrie Irving, DeAndre Ayton, then Ben Simmons. And then if you look at the overall utility players, Kyrie Irving and Ben Simmons were also there. Then also Saban Lee, if somebody popped up a whole bunch for me, it should be no surprise. Nick Claxton, another one, and Mikal Bridges. So those are the players who ended up being most meaningful in the builds I made. And then I think for large field tournaments, showdown, I think this is a really good spot to roster Dwayne Washington and showdown, particularly for a 1-game slate.
Thought you were going to say Joe Harris.
No.
That was the most. He ran cardio, and actually, it wasn't even cardio. He
He played like
walked
18
to the
minutes.
corners.
He didn't even play that much.
The weirdest thing. I know, but I'm saying that it was like there was nothing he did on the basketball floor of any value. He had like those 2 early turnovers, and from that point on, he wasn't even involved with the basketball, and everybody was out. It was so weird to me that Joe Harris just didn't even exist. It was one of my worst plays of the year. I will throw that out there. Steph knocks down a 3. Thank God. Let's go.
So we've got some more super chats to answer. First from Corey Bomber, Slow-Mo and Garza, or Prince and Hart. Prince and Hart for me.
Yeah, Prince and Hart as well. I wish Garza could be a thing. How much Garza did I get to? I have 1 lineup of Garza, 1 out of 80 lineups. So not good.
AJ, will Edwards play? Yes, Edwards is playing.
Edwards is playing basketball tonight, and you should get to some because nobody else apparently wants to.
And does that get us all caught up on super chats? It does. So let's go back to BetPro. And is there anything else that we could find? I know you mentioned you like the fantasy points for Nas Reed, Eric. Are there any other props that are rating out well for us, whether it be in BetPro or your own projections that we should be taking shots on over for prize picks purposes?
Yeah, I'll finish out building out the card. There's one other one, the Precious Achiuwa one thing. He doesn't have a fantasy score available, but it is now the number 1 over at the NBA prop tool and NBA Bet Pro. Precious Achiuwa over 5.5 rebounds. We have him projected north of 7. I have him right around that. I mean, that's just smash, absolute smash. I have a lot of exposure on prize picks to that game here. I'm going to be taking Precious Achiuwa over 5.5 rebounds for the ride.
Yep. I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Precious Achiuwa that he's somebody who I bet the rebound prop on earlier in the day. Precious Achiuwa. Unfortunately, the line that I bet it at isn't available anymore. I bet him at -105. Now it's -134. So I got some good closing line value.
Good man.
I've had a bad run of players getting injured lately that I bet it's either stuff or injuries or foul trouble, things along that line. Like I had Julius Randle to score more real life points than Kyle Kuzma last night with Bradley Beal coming back. Randle gets into foul trouble in that game. I had, what was the other one I had? Oh, I had Christian Wood for over 9.5 rebounds last night. Picks up 2 rebounds in the first 2 minutes of the game, but also gets 2 fouls, comes off the court, ends up finishing with 9 rebounds. Had a lot of those. A little annoying as of late, but Precious Achiuwa is somebody who I think that there is some good value there.
I'm running like the Suns, so I'm running way over my head, taking care of my lineups because I have been getting murdered in DFS. It's funny how that works out sometimes. Like the last week or so, I've ran like the absolute Sun betting, and I've been horrendous in the DFS streets outside of UFC of all things this last weekend. And I had a good NFL weekend too, but NBA the last 2 weeks, woof, it's been tough.
Yeah, total inverse for me. Absolute inverse. It's like yesterday, my NBA lineups weren't particularly good, but I ended up being really profitable because my highest scoring lineup ended up being the one I played in single entry, where my highest projected lineup didn't have Luka in it and it had Jokic in it. And I didn't have that many Jokic lineups yesterday, but my highest projected one just happened to have Jokic over Luka in it. So Luka was like, I don't know, at 50, 60% owned in the higher stake stuff on DraftKings yesterday. So I ended up doing well for that.
That's awesome.
Some run good in some spots and then less so.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit. I'm trying to remember who that
Sam Burns, very, very good. It's that soccer coach, the soccer coach that he was trying to explain to he was like at a Premier League press conference or something where he was explaining it was so good. I took Garza out of that one lineup, by the way, too. So I have 0 now. So enjoy the 40 bomb from him, everybody.
And by the way, you preface that by saying you want him to become a thing and have a big night. You probably don't want that anymore.
I don't want it anymore. I really, really do not want that.
Yeah, I'm looking through the bets too to see if there's anything else I like. Whenever you could get plus money on OG Anunoby for over 1.5 steals, I think it makes some semblance of sense. He averages north of 2 steals per game this year. He's had multiple steals in more games than not. So whenever getting plus money on him for over 1.5 steals, I think that's worth looking at. But Beyond
Take
that,
the
feels
over
like
of his
pretty fair.
28.5 fantasy score over on Prize Picks in the event that you think you want to just like invest in him getting a bunch of steals, because like it's inevitable. This guy gets infinity steals a game.
Well, about 2.5, but infinity also.
Yeah.
All right. That is going to do it for us today, guys. If you have not done it yet, do us a big favor. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tomorrow, I'm going to be here with Neil Orfield. Neil is doing his first NBA Live Before Lock of the Year. Looking forward to that. So I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Good luck tonight.